Douluo, after listening to the advice, I became a god. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 476. The world is eclipsed. After all, although these people were the honored guests that Seahorse Douluo had told them to respect, they were too young. But when he looked back, he couldn't help but take a breath, no longer reserved, and accelerated with all his strength. The one who left the deepest impression in his mind was naturally Feng, who had a golden trident mark on his forehead and was flying in the air. Soon, Feng and others realized some differences between Sea Soul Masters and Land Soul Masters. Generally speaking, after a Soul Master reaches the level of Soul Saint, he will have a qualitative leap, which is the same for both Sea Soul Masters and Land Soul Masters. Therefore, this Purple Sea Soul Master who is a Soul Saint must be a little stronger than them in soul power. However, when he accelerated with all his strength, not to mention Juzukin and Juzian of the agility attack system, even other people could follow him easily. The strength that Sea Soul Masters can exert on land is indeed incomparable to that of Land Soul Masters. Only the sea is their real stage. The result of this situation is that everyone basically followed the Purple Sea Soul Master at full speed. For ordinary people, it would probably take 2 days to walk 200 miles, and even a whole day on horseback, but for a high-level Soul Master running at full speed, it only takes an hour. Since they rested for an hour after lunch, and it was winter, it got dark early. Therefore, when the sun set and the sky was painted with a faint sunset glow, Feng and his party finally arrived at their destination. After passing through a dense forest, when the purple-clothed Sea Soul Master stopped, the women were already stunned by the scenery in front of them. The sparkling sea water reflected countless colorful lights under the shade of the sunset, and in the embrace of the sea water, there was a small island in the middle of the ring-shaped water area. The terrain on the island is very high, about 500 meters high. The most peculiar thing is that the island is shrouded in a layer of faint golden light. Although the light is not strong, Feng and others can see that it is definitely not from the light of the sunset, but the glory of the island itself. At the top of the island, there was a building that looked like a white jade sculpture. It was square and domed. From where they were standing, they could only see that the outermost part of the building was made up of huge white stone pillars, and its entire material was so crystal clear and full of sacred light. Is this the forbidden area? Juliana murmured. The purple-clothed sea god Soul Master's eyes were full of piety. Yes, this is the forbidden area of our Poseidon Island. The Poseidon Temple, which enshrines Lord Poseidon, is the only building on the top of Poseidon Mountain. It is also the real Poseidon Island, also known as the island within the island. Please look. In front of us is the staircase to the island. That's where you need to pass the test. There are a total of 1001 steps. Only the guardians of Poseidon Island who have passed Lord Poseidon's purple level assessment or above are qualified to step onto the steps and enter the Poseidon Temple to worship. Otherwise, they will be blocked by the light of Poseidon. Anyone who wants to try the test can go now. I'll wait for you here, but please don't make any noise on Poseidon Mountain, so as not to disturb Lord Poseidon. Everyone looked in the direction he pointed, and sure enough, from the front of the Poseidon Temple, stone steps extended downward. Under the glow of the sunset, the white stone steps reflected light, like a jade belt lightly draped over Poseidon Mountain. After exchanging a glance, Feng and the others were about to start, but the purple-clothed Sea Soul Master seemed to have remembered something and hurriedly said, "Dear guests, when taking the test, if things are impossible, don't force it. Just quickly retreat from the sacred mountain and you will naturally not be damaged. The light of the sea god is probably the only attempt in your future tests that is not dangerous, so you don't have to be too taboo." Feng smiled and nodded, then said, "Thank you for your advice, but you don't have to wait for us here. We don't know how long this attempt will last. We have dry food with us." The purple-clothed Sea Soul Master hesitated for a moment, but still said, "It doesn't matter, you don't have to worry about me. In fact, It is a good thing to be allowed by Lord Poseidon to accept the test of the light of the sea god. Only the assessment of its level will have this item. Without the permission of Lord Poseidon, those of us who have passed the test of the Sea Soul Masters cannot enter the forbidden area. After hearing his words, Yun Feng's heart moved slightly. He said nothing more. He called his wives, hugged their slender waists, and directly controlled the Blue-Silver Emperor to rush to the ring-shaped sea. The width of the ring-shaped sea is about 200 meters. The waves in the sea are not big. It is called a sea, but it is actually a ring-shaped lake. Of course, the water here is still seawater. I just don't know how to enter the island. This time it is not a test given by Seahorse Douluo. It will be much easier for everyone to reach the opposite sea god mountain. When everyone was flying over the ring-shaped sea, they suddenly found that as soon as they entered the range of the ring-shaped sea, except for Zizhenzu and Zhu Xianyun, a layer of faint light emerged from everyone. Among them, Shui Binger, Shui Dubuer, Juzuking, Gu Dubuina and others had black light on their bodies. Ning Rong Narong, Dao Wu and Huliina had red light on their bodies, and Yun Feng had a faint golden light on his body, which was exactly the same as the light that finally stabilized when they were tested. Just as the light appeared on them, the purple-clothed sea spirit master on the shore suddenly changed his face and shouted not good. However, he remembered it too late. Just as Yun Feng and others entered the range of the ring-shaped sea, suddenly, everyone felt a murderous aura suddenly surging from the ring-shaped sea below them, and then, a huge shadow broke through the water and aimed directly at the flying Yun Feng. It was a fish, about 5 meters long, with a mouth at the front like a sharp spear, which accounted for more than 1/3 of its body. After suddenly jumping out of the water, a layer of black air flashed all over its body, and it accelerated again, rushing towards Yun Feng like a black lightning. But Yun Feng's driving skills were no joke. When he realized something was wrong, Yun Feng suddenly swung in the air, forming a broken angle, and narrowly dodged the black lightning-like attack. Gu Dubuina could not expose her strength, so she had not taken action. But although Yun Feng was only level 70, he could fight with the top-titled Douluo, so how could he be afraid of a fish? So he released his domain directly, the Killing God domain, the Blue-Silver domain, surrounded by layers, the natural fragrance, the bright moonlight scattered directly, covering everyone with a layer of moon-colored gauze. Cold, extremely cold, lingering around. After Yun Feng took a look, a giant vine, carrying the power of heaven and earth, swept directly towards the strange fish. In an instant, the sky and the earth lost their color. Chapter 477. This test is a bit weird, but the strange fish was very slippery. After realizing something was wrong, it twisted its body in the air and changed its direction. It turned into a black line and went back into the water. The water surface became quiet again, but Yun Feng's moves were not so easy to dodge. With the burst of soul power, the sea surface was directly frozen. What's going on? Dao Wu asked in shock and anger. The purple-clothed sea rose master didn't tell them that there would be soul beasts attacking them in this ring-shaped sea. Yun Feng spread his mental power and carefully felt the breath in the ring-shaped sea. Then he looked at the faint golden light around his body, and his starry eyes were shining. I understand, the light on us should play a protective role, so that the sea soul beasts in this ring sea will not attack us. But Xianyun and Zizhenzu don't have that mission. That's why the soul beasts in the ring sea think she is an invader and attack her. Now she is protected by my light. The sea soul beasts below should not be able to feel her breath, so they don't continue to attack. Let's go quickly and get ashore first. After listening to Yun Feng's analysis, everyone nodded. After standing up, Yun Feng successfully crossed the more than 200-meter wide ring sea in a few breaths and arrived at the other side. The purple-clothed sea soul master on the shore was stunned. He had indeed forgotten that two of Yun Feng and his team were not qualified to accept the test of the light of the sea god, but he still found it difficult to understand the situation at this time. In his memory, even if the soul master accepted the mission of the light of the sea god, it would be impossible to use his own body protection light to protect others from passing through this ring sea safely. Why can Yun Feng do it? In fact, He missed a question. The three-pronged track mark on Yun Feng's forehead also appeared for the first time. How could the Sigid test be equal to the black level test? After landing safely at the foot of the Sigid mountain, the stairs to the Sigid mountain were just a few dozen meters in front of them. Zhu Xiaoyun looked at her sister Zhu Zuqing and said directly, "Zuqing, how about we try it first?" Zhu Zuqing didn't have any other ideas about this, so she nodded and said, "Okay." Yun Feng didn't stop them when he saw this, but watched them quietly. When they arrived at the foot of the Sigid mountain, they immediately felt a majestic and solemn atmosphere around them. It seemed that some special energy was suppressing them, and they felt heavy in their hearts. Zhu Xiaoyun also became serious at this time, and his words were very simple, "Let's go." The next moment, the two of them flew up and rushed towards the direction of the stairs. Bang! Bang! Two muffled sounds rang almost at the same time. Just when Zhu Zuqing and Zhu Xiaoyun rushed to the position of the stairs, they seemed to hit something, and the next moment they were bounced back, flying back more than 10 meters. Fortunately, the momentum of the two people's previous charge was not too fierce. Even Ji stumbled back and finally stood firm. The two looked at each other and saw the horror in each other's eyes. "What's going on?" Shui Binger asked as the others gathered around. Zhu Zuqing thought for a while and said, "It seems that I hit a wall full of elasticity. I didn't have much momentum and was directly bounced back. I couldn't resist at all." "Sister, what about you?" Zhu Xiaoyun nodded and said, "It's the same for me. It seems that from the position of the stairs, it is the range that the light of the sea god really covers." "Zuqing, try to release the netherworld / in the diagonal direction upwards, and use a small amount of soul power." Zhu Zuqing nodded after hearing this. At this time, she released her martial soul, and the third soul ring was shining. She waved her hand and struck, and her claws turned into a dark light and rushed diagonally upwards. A strange scene appeared. Everyone only saw a faint golden light flashing. The nether slash that Zhu Zuqing sent out paused for a moment, and then it rebounded like lightning. The speed was even faster than when Zhu Zuqing fired it just now, and the target was still Zhu Zuqing herself. Yun Feng reacted very quickly, and directly stretched out his hand to smash the returning one. "It seems that my guess is right." As the future queen of the former Xingluo Empire royal family, Zhu Xiaoyun is undoubtedly more familiar with the various changes of martial spirits and skills among everyone. After all, in that environment, it is impossible not to understand. Through the collision just now and the rebound of the nether slash, she has figured out a lot of things. This sea god's light is really a domineering protective shield. It should be able to rebound any physical and energy attacks. Moreover, it is not a random rebound, but only rebounds to the person who launched the attack. Otherwise, Zuqing's nether slash just now was shot out at an angle, so it should be rebounded diagonally above the air. Huliino also seemed to have grasped something. "In this case, isn't it?" Zhu Xiaoyun nodded, confirming her idea. "That's right, that is to say, when we climb the stairs, we can't use any skills, otherwise we will be hit back immediately." Huo Wen couldn't help but say, "Damn, this test is really abnormal, both physical and energy rebound. How can we get up?" Zhu Xiaoyun said in a deep voice, "We should only climb step by step under the pressure of rebound. If our strength can't hold on, then we will be rebounded immediately. Although attack skills can't be used, I think body protection and amplification skills can still be used. Let's go and try again." When she came to the stairs again, Zhu Xiaoyun was the first to go up, slowly raised her right leg, and stepped towards the first step. As soon as her right leg entered the range of the stairs, she immediately felt a strong resistance in front of her leg, pushing her forward forcefully. With the soul power running, Zhu Xiaoyun's feet slowly stepped onto the stairs, and at the same time led her body to stand on the first step. Yun Feng's eyes also flashed a trace of surprise at this time. He didn't expect Zhu Xiaoyun to have such insight. Yun Feng smiled and stood up. Zhu Xiaoyun's judgment was completely correct, because when she stood up, she felt a huge pressure coming from all directions. She squeezed her body hard, just like pressing a finger into a balloon, and the balloon was about to pop the finger out. A layer of golden mist appeared around her body, and Yun Feng clearly felt that his soul power began to be consumed rapidly. Withstanding the pressure, he took his second step, just as Zhu Xiaoyun expected. When he stepped onto the second step, the pressure increased again. About 10% more than when he stepped onto the first step. Taking a deep breath, Yun Feng sped up this time, took 3 steps forward in succession, and came to the 5th step. Suddenly, the feeling became more obvious, and the positive pressure rushed in like a tide. Yun Feng did a simple soul power calculation and was surprised to find that if he wanted to stay stable here, a level 30 soul master would need to do his best to barely do it. Chapter 478. Isn't this the kind of pressure you're looking for? At this time, Shui Binger and Huo Wu also came to his side, bearing the same pressure. They looked at each other and continued to move forward. This time, they walked to the 20th step in one breath. Yun Feng didn't react, but Zhu Xianyun, Shui Binger, and Huo Wu couldn't stop sweating at this time. The soul power in the body was consumed at an alarming rate. Shui Binger and Huo Wu were the first to react, and their soul skills were running. Ice armor and resistance firings appeared on their bodies. They continued to climb with solid steps. Zhu Xianyun also urged stronger soul power to follow behind them, but starting from the 20th step, every step they took was so difficult. When they climbed to the 30th step, watermarks began to appear on the ground, which were formed by sweat. The black aura around Shui Binger and Huo Wu's bodies also became obviously thicker. Their faces flushed red, and they had obviously used up all their soul power. Shui Binger and Huo Wu also used all the soul skills that could help them. At this time, Yun Feng's strength was reflected. Until this time, Yun Feng still did not use any soul skills, but he still took steps at the same time as the women. This was not only because Yun Feng's soul power was above them, but more importantly, the quality of Yun Feng's soul bones was much higher than that of Shui Binger, Huo Wu, and Zhu Xianyun. With the increase in the body of the Ice and Fire Dragon King's soul bones, he was able to withstand greater pressure. 31. 32. Sweat dripped like a spring. Shui Binger and Huo Wu gritted their teeth and continued to move forward. 33. 34. 35, 36, 37. The two women paused at this time. Their soul power had been consumed to a very terrifying degree. At the moment when they took the 38th step, the soul power in their bodies could no longer support the simultaneous use of soul skills. The body paused for a moment, and the next moment, the two had rolled out, and under the huge pressure, they were bounced out like a cannonball. Plop! Shui Binger and Huo Wu fell directly into the circular sea, and the place where they fell was nearly 70 meters away from the shore, which shows how great the pressure they had been under before. Seeing this, Guiduina directly controlled her soul power and fished the two out. But when the other girls saw the two girls, their faces were already pale. Ning Rong and the others clearly saw that Shui Binger and Huo Wu's legs were shaking uncontrollably. So she simply sat down on the ground and breathed a sigh of relief. So amazing. Everyone's face showed a solemn expression. They knew that if it were them, they would never be able to do better than the two girls. Just as the other girls were still looking at Shui Binger and Huo Wu, there was another exclamation from above, and Zhu Xianyun was also directly ejected like the two girls before. However, Guiduina had experience at this time, so she did not let Zhu Xianyun fall into the sea water, but controlled her soul power and slowly placed her down. After the three women rested for a while, they did not practice to restore their soul power directly, but stayed where they were. They also wanted to see how far Yun Feng could go. At this time, Yun Feng had summoned his external soul bone and came to the 60th step. Stimulating the external soul bone would undoubtedly increase Yun Feng's own attributes. With a thick golden mist, he still did not stop and continued to climb. Yun Feng certainly knew that he could not stop at this time. Stopping would not only not give him time to recover his breath, but would consume his soul power to a greater extent. It is the first effort, the second is weak, and the third is exhausted. At the 65th step, Yun Feng only felt that his legs began to become heavy, and it was extremely difficult to lift them, but he did not have the slightest idea of giving up. The soul power in his body was surging like an eruption of magma, and the pressure on his body had begun to make his bones make a little noise. Although he could fight against the titled Buo and even win, he did not rely entirely on physical strength. but mostly on his own soul power and domain. But the more he felt this way, the more obvious the joy in Yun Feng's eyes became. Of course, the girls couldn't see it now. A circle of faint red light spread under Yun Feng's feet. The girls were surprised to see that when the red light appeared, Yun Feng actually sped up his pace and climbed up 5 steps in succession. That's right, it was the increase from the killing god domain. Yun Feng, whose soul power was as high as level 70, finally burst out his powerful strength. 71, 72, Yun Feng took 2 more steps firmly, but at this time he also found that it was getting harder and harder for him to walk. Although his 8 meridians were open, his soul power recovery speed was much faster than others, but at this time the speed of soul power consumption in his body could not keep up with the recovery speed. Another white light gushed out. This time, Yun Feng moved his feet together and climbed up another 8 steps. The blue-silver domain also appeared under the strong pressure. When the blue-silver domain was used, Yun Feng clearly felt that his body was lighter. At this time, the blue-silver domain appeared, and he also had the same feeling, that is, with the help of the power of the domain, he could climb again. However, when he reached the 85th step, Yun Feng stopped. In all the previous steps, his movements were slow, but he was always moving forward. But now, he finally stopped. He raised his right leg 3 times, and put it down 3 times. His whole body leaned forward, and the wings supporting his body began to tremble slightly. Obviously, he couldn't hold on any longer. Finally, Yun Feng didn't move forward, but he didn't fly out directly like Shui Binger, Huo Wu, and Zhu Xiaoyun. Instead, he slowly stepped back. Every step back would reduce the pressure. When Yun Feng retreated more than 10 steps, he found that his body seemed to be much lighter. He didn't dare to stop because the soul power in his body was spreading towards exhaustion. When he retreated the last 10 steps, Yun Feng's speed was already very fast. When he finally stepped back from the steps, the golden mist around his body dissipated. Yun Feng felt that all the pores on his body seemed to be opened. The next moment, the feeling of weakness came like an overwhelming force. With a plop, he fell to the ground. The power of God is indeed something I cannot resist without the right tools. You can try it, too. After saying this, Yun Feng sat cross-legged with difficulty and entered a state of meditation. He remembered a saying in his previous life very clearly: pressure is the best catalyst for cultivation. This was the feeling that Yun Feng had when he climbed the stairs under the strong pressure of the light of the sea god. Facing the huge pressure brought by the light of the sea god, he was not surprised but happy. Isn't this the kind of pressure they were looking for when they came to the Sea God Island? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 479 Guduina. Who can test me? The emptiness of soul power in his body made Yun Feng feel excited at this moment. He knew that practicing in this situation would be of great benefit to himself, so he immediately entered the state of practice. Without the huge pressure, Yun Feng felt like he was floating in the air. Without the pressure of the light of the sea god, his body seemed to be completely stretched out, and every cell was cheering. Yun Feng had discovered that the pressure brought by the light of the sea god came completely from the front. How to complete this test? It would take continuous attempts and stronger strength. When Yun Feng woke up from the practice, he felt that the internal power in his body was full and ready to burst out, and he felt indescribably happy. It was just because the sweat from the previous climb made his clothes stick to his body and it was a bit uncomfortable. Looking around, other people were also in the state of practice at this time. From their somewhat embarrassed appearance, it can be seen that they have climbed the stairs leading to the sea god temple. Only Guduina was not in any serious trouble, and she didn't even go up. Standing up, he simply stretched his muscles and bones. His muscles were tight but not without elasticity. The feeling of weakness was swept away, and he was filled with a feeling of strength. This feeling was something he had never experienced before. Thinking that his goal was the 333 steps, it seemed that he could practice here for a long time. Yun Feng's eyes were full of excitement. This trip to the Sea God Island was indeed the right one. "Husband, are you okay?" Gu Duoina whispered. Yun Feng smiled slightly, walked to her side, looked at Gu Duoina's fairy-like appearance and said with a smile, "Why, didn't you try it?" "Me?" Gu Duoina was stunned for a moment, and then said speechlessly, "Who can test me? This black mark, I can destroy it by raising my hand." After Yun Feng was stunned for a moment, he also reacted. For Gu Duoina, this was not an insult to her, and what she had to do was to restore her own strength, not to obtain some power that was not as good as hers, which was meaningless. "I was overthinking this." Gu Duoina shook her head, looked into Yun Feng's eyes and said seriously, "You will definitely become a god in the future, so you have to be confident and don't think about anything. I will always be by your side, no matter what it is." Gu Duoina also knew that she was now completely tied to Yun Feng. Some things should be said. The strong have an invincible belief, they can use the power of others, but it is not their own. They have to find their own way. Yun Feng also knew the meaning of what Gu Duoina said, so he nodded seriously. Yes, when Yun Feng and Gu Duoina talked about this, the girls also stood up and looked at Yun Feng and Gu Duoina. Being looked at by his wives with such eyes, Yun Feng also laughed awkwardly, and then said directly, "Come on, let's discuss the experience of climbing the stairs." "I was practicing before." "How many steps have you climbed?" Zhu Xiaoyun and Zi Zhenzu looked ashamed, and then under Yun Feng's gaze, the two spoke first. "We didn't climb too many steps. We couldn't climb after the 30th step." Zi Zhenzu also nodded and said, "I climbed the 35th step. Maybe it's because of my poor talent." Yun Feng nodded, and then looked at the others. Shui Duoer also said directly, "I barely reached the 37th step, wrong the 40th step." Yun Feng also had a clearer understanding of this in his heart. After all, not everyone is like him. The first few women who followed him, with his help, actually had very strong physical strength. But facing the light of the sea god, it still seems a little insufficient, especially for an auxiliary soul master like Ning Rong. After eating so many natural treasures and immortal herbs, plus a body of soul bones, she can only do this. You can imagine, even if she uses the 9 treasures glazed tower to increase her strength, she can't make her body stronger, and the ladder she has to climb is the same as Zhao Wu and Huliina, so by then the people behind her may surpass her, and she may even be behind. Yun Feng thought of this, and the other women could naturally think of it, but because of the special nature of auxiliary soul masters, the martial spirit is far less powerful than the combat soul master in increasing the body, so climbing the ladder is naturally much more difficult than others. I have just endured the pressure of the light of Poseidon, and have also felt some of the changes in it. It seems that this test is extremely difficult for each of you. However, there is a flaw in it. The test bestowed by Poseidon is definitely not impossible to complete. If my calculations are correct, I can even help someone complete the task now. Yun Feng's words immediately caused everyone's surprise. They didn't understand where Yun Feng's confidence came from. Seeing the look on everyone's faces, Yun Feng smiled and said, "Just now when I was climbing, when I released my domain, I found that I seemed to be able to cover you below. After previous exploration, I found that although the light of the sea god is powerful, it cannot block auxiliary spirit skills and spirit skills that enhance oneself. Not every one of us is here to take the test alone. Don't forget that we are a whole, a family." Ning Rong asked curiously, "Husband, do you mean that if we concentrate all our strength on one person, then we can help her complete this test?" Yun Feng smiled and nodded. "That's what I mean. Although not all of us can use skills to assist others, your 9 treasures glazed towers various auxiliary abilities, my killing god and blue-silver dual domains, Huliina's killing god domain, and Shui Binger's ice armor can all enhance our partners, especially for someone like Huliina who has the skill to strengthen her body, as long as she uses all of her amplification skills before entering the light of the sea god, plus the effect of the spirit bone, and if we fully assist her, I believe we can help her complete the test." After hearing Yun Feng's words, Huliina stood up, came to Yun Feng and said, "In that case, let's get started. But I have a question. Why don't you do it yourself? Even if you don't have any body-strengthening soul skills, your body is already much stronger than ours. Yun Feng smiled and explained, good question, because I can't be the first to complete the task, and neither can you. You even have to be the last and complete it with me. I still need to think carefully about the specific order. Ning Rong was a little puzzled. Why is that? Wouldn't it be easier for us for every extra person who completes the task? Chapter 480 I came here mainly for you. Yun Feng glanced at her and said in a deep voice, I just don't want any of us to feel relaxed in advance. I've thought about it carefully. From the expression on Seahorse Duo's face when he saw you taking the black level test, we can see that this black level test is already extremely terrifying. And it is obviously an impossible task for people of our level. It takes them 10 years to complete each test, but we only have 1 year. But will the sea god give us a task that we really can't complete? The answer must be no. Therefore, there must be some secret in the test that the sea god gives us that can help us pass the test. And this secret is in our identical first test, crossing the light of the sea god. And don't forget the purpose of our coming here. From the situation on this sea god island, we can see that the sea god is at least a powerful existence with power that we can't imagine. In this case, why would the light of the sea god give us the opportunity to cheat? Since the light of the sea god that appears on the seahorse holy pillar can give us different levels of tests according to our different situations, it is impossible for him not to know that we can assist each other. As a god, he will naturally not miss anything we can think of. So, the flaw here is actually a temptation for us. If we can't resist this temptation, perhaps the second test will become more difficult, or even life-threatening. This time, even Zhu Xiaoyun couldn't understand it. Husband, aren't you exaggerating a bit? Yun Feng smiled indifferently. He had seen the answer to the riddle, so how could he guess wrong? So he said directly, no, Zhu Yun, listen to me. What I said is not exaggerating at all. And I am more than 90% sure that I can prove that my guess is correct. Let me ask you, after the previous climb, did you feel that your training speed increased significantly, and your body also had a good reaction? Everyone nodded, and they all had similar situations to Yun Feng. Yun Feng nodded with satisfaction and said, that's right. The light of the sea god here is a huge pressure on us. It can squeeze our soul power and consume it to a large extent. Under the influence of this pressure, the speed of our cultivation will produce twice the result with half the effort. At the same time, it will also continuously enhance the body's ability to withstand pressure. So, if we complete the test, will the light of the sea god still prevent us from ascending the sea temple? The answer is also number. In other words, as long as we complete the first test, we will lose the pressure brought by the light of the sea god. So, I can tell you for sure that the meaning of the light of the sea god as the first test of time travel is not to make things difficult for us, but to give us an opportunity to enhance our own strength. Only in this first year, if we can improve our strength as much as possible with the help of the light of the sea god, will we have the possibility of passing the subsequent tests. Therefore, not only can we not complete this test in advance, but we must also delay the completion time to the last day, or delay it until it has no effect on us at all, if it is really boring. Yun Feng blinked at the girls. The girls naturally understood what Yun Feng meant. They all knew Yun Feng's soul skills, plus the hidden aura. As long as they had the coordinates, they could just go back when they were bored. After playing for a while, they would come back to practice. Besides, they had so many sisters, so they naturally had to take care of them. When they thought of this, Yun Feng didn't need to say anything more. An idea popped up in the girls' minds, that is, to get the most out of it. Anyway, we have to maximize the benefits that the light of the sea god brings us. Clap, clap, clap. Just as the girls fell into deep thought after hearing Yun Feng's words, applause sounded. At some point, the red figure appeared again, but this time she appeared on the stairs leading to the sea god temple. Poseidon walked down slowly, with an admiring look on his noble face. The applause came from her pair of hands as tender as green onions. Poseidon's admiring voice sounded, I didn't expect you to find the true secret of the light of the sea god so quickly. It's worth the high test given to you by the sea god. Hearing the praise of the strongest person on the sea god island, Everyone immediately understood that Yun Feng's guess was completely correct. I don't dare to be praised by the high priest, but I believe that we can definitely complete the test of the sea god. Yun Feng's voice was full of determination and the demeanor of a king. Poseidon didn't know why his liking for Yun Feng was getting stronger and stronger. What a good child. However, this thought was quickly suppressed by Poseidon, who nodded to them and said, "The only one who can help you is yourself. This is the only time I have a hint for you. Of course, if you haven't guessed it, I won't be sure of your guess. Each of the subsequent tests will be more difficult than the previous one, and you will have to pay more." "Thank you, High Priest, but can I trouble the High Priest for one thing?" Yun Feng said directly to Poseidon. "You tell me, as long as it is not related to the test you need to endure, I will try my best to satisfy you." Bosexi's eyes moved, and the women discovered for the first time that the noble aura could also give people pressure. For them, the sea god Douluo in front of them was no different from the sea, both of which were the unfathomable depths. Yun Feng smiled and said, "I hope you can have someone provide us with some food and drinking water, and prepare some clothes for us, and more fresh water." Although the 4 seasons on Sea God Island are like spring, it is very different from the outside. When they climbed the stairs and crossed the sea god's light, everyone's clothes were soaked with sweat, although they all had clothes to change. But if there is not enough fresh water to take a bath and wash clothes, I am afraid that it will not take long for the smell on the body to come out. If there is enough food and clean water, we can stay here to practice, so as not to delay the precious time of this year. Every minute and every second of this year is extremely important to us, so I'll leave the high priest to you. In fact, Yun Feng's words were just an excuse for the unreasonable things later. Bosexi was a little surprised, but he still agreed decisively. Bosexi smiled and said, "Okay, I will ask someone to prepare it for you. Oh, by the way, the seawater in the ring-shaped sea in front of you has a very low salt content and is very clean. It can be used to clean the body." Yun Feng nodded and said, "That's very convenient." Bosexi looked at Yun Feng and said directly, "I came here mainly for you." Chapter 481, Your mind is full of random thoughts, so you soak in the water to sober up. Yun Feng was stunned for a moment, pointing at his nose and said, "For me, this." I don't know what Yun Feng was thinking. He blurted out, "High Priest, you are indeed very beautiful, but I already have someone in my heart." Even a strong man like Poseidon Douluo was stunned by what he said, and then a blush floated on Bosexi's noble face, knowing that Yun Feng was teasing her. "What are you talking about? I am more than enough to be your great-grandmother, asking for a beating." As she said, she saw her sleeves move slightly, and Yun Feng immediately felt waves of pressure coming towards him, trying to overturn him. But Yun Feng was a nobody, and it was naturally impossible for him to be knocked down like this, so he decisively operated his soul power to fight. For a while, it was evenly matched. But slowly Yun Feng realized that something was wrong. Bosexi couldn't take him down, and his face began to turn red with shame. Seeing this, Yun Feng sighed and directly withdrew his soul power. With a flick of her sleeves, Yun Feng's body flew out like a ball and landed directly in the ring-shaped sea. Bosexi was shocked. She didn't expect Yun Feng to be so strong. It was completely beyond her imagination. She also knew that Yun Feng was saving her face, so Bosexi waved his right hand again, and Yun Feng's body flew out of the ring-shaped sea and landed in his previous position again, without any mistake. "Your mind is full of random thoughts. I'll let you soak in the water to sober up." When she said this, her face was already red. However, this was the first time that the girls saw Bosexi display his strength. What shocked them was that from the time Yun Feng was thrown out to the time he was pulled back, they didn't even feel a trace of fluctuation in rational power. Is this the strength of a level 99 super strong man? Even my husband found it difficult to resist. Yun Feng also smiled and wiped the water stains on his face, then used his soul power to steam his clothes and body and said, "The high priest is very powerful, but his skills are not as good as others." I was rude to the beauty. Bosexi looked at Yun Feng and didn't know what to say at this time. "You have so many beautiful wives around you, and you still want to tease her, an old woman?" But now she didn't want to say anything. She just wanted to finish the matter quickly. Finish it. and then leave here quickly. It was too dangerous here. Her heart was already in chaos. No one on the Sea God Island has ever dared to talk to me like this. It's fresh. Don't worry about these things. Your Majesty Yun Feng, I bring you an opportunity. Please sit down. Yun Feng was stunned for a moment, and looked at Gu Duoina inquiringly. Gu Duoina also thought of something at this time, and hurriedly nodded to him, motioning him to do it. Anyway, with her around, she didn't believe that a small extreme Buo could cause any harm to Yun Feng. Yun Feng's extremely hidden eyes were still captured by Bo Saxi. Glancing at Yun Feng with deep eyes, she raised her right hand, turned her wrist, and with her palm facing up, a golden bead appeared. The golden bead seemed to be carved from the most precious golden crystal, transparent and flawless. The most peculiar thing was that in this bead, there was a layer of light golden air that was constantly fluctuating, just like the golden mist that appeared around Yun Feng's body when he was under the pressure of the light of the sea god. With a flash of golden light, the golden bead flew out and slowly came to the top of Yun Feng's head. Bo Saxi flicked his finger, and with a slight sound of bow, the bead had broken above Yun Feng's head. Suddenly, a thick golden mist poured down and enveloped Yun Feng's body. Bo Saxi's voice rang in everyone's ears. Anyone who has accepted the black level or above assessment granted by Lord Poseidon will have a chance to obtain a God-given soul ring when they reach the bottleneck for the first time. There is no need to hunt soul beasts. The God-given soul ring will give you the soul skills you need most and the soul ring of the highest level that you can bear. Everyone has only one chance. Your Majesty Yun Feng, you must feel it carefully and use your greatest perseverance to bear the baptism of the God-given soul ring to get the greatest benefit. God-given soul ring? These four simple words made the eyes of the girls fall into weirdness. Yun Feng also fell into thinking. He has been at level 70 for a long time. In fact, before meeting Sister Gu Duoina, in the impression of the girls, they always thought that gods were actually powerful people, or powerful soul masters. How could there be gods in this world? However, after meeting Gu Duoina, they believed it, but the current Gu Duoina's strength has not been fully restored. However, this is the first time they have heard of the God-given soul ring, the most suitable soul ring. Doesn't that mean that when you get this God-given soul ring, the stronger your own strength, the more beneficial it is? How did Poseidon know that her husband had reached level 70? Did she feel it when her husband impacted the light of the sea god? But no matter what, this God-given soul ring is a great thing for them. After all, they are all land soul masters. Here, all they can see is the sea, and sea soul beasts are not suitable for everyone. So if the soul power breaks through in such a place, they have to return to the Tandu Empire. Although it is very convenient to have Yun Feng, these are unnecessary things. After all, Yun Feng has just finished talking about the benefits of the light of the sea god. It's just a pity that everyone has only one chance. The golden light mist with a blurred color gradually submerged Yun Feng's body, and circles of halos began to appear around his body. The women could barely pass through the golden light through the purple magic pupil and saw the enjoyment on Yun Feng's face. Absorbing this God-given soul ring is not stressful for Yun Feng. However, this thing is the physical fitness of absorbing the limit. As long as the physical fitness requirements are met, no matter how strong the absorption is, it will be fine. Even the seventh soul ring can reach 100,000 years. At this time, Yun Feng's physical fitness can be compared with the titled Buo and the soul beast of 100,000 years. Of course, he can keep absorbing. However, the more he went on, the more Yun Feng's body trembled, until an unhealthy red flush appeared on the surface of his skin. It can be imagined how severe the pain he was suffering at this time. With a puff, a bright moonlight rose from behind him, and instantly turned into a huge round moon shape, swinging and shaking behind Yun Feng. Poseidon Buo Poseidon has been paying attention to Yun Feng's expression. When the women occasionally looked at her, they could see some expectations in her eyes. But obviously, the pain Yun Feng is enduring now should have reached the limit. The women were cheering for Yun Feng in their hearts. Yun Feng also knew this, and he had tried to absorb spirit rings beyond his level more than once, so he certainly understood that every second he persisted, the effect of the spirit ring he obtained would increase by 1 point. Yun Feng was indeed enduring great pain, but his willpower was originally the strongest among the crowd. However, the spirit power of the women has now caught up, and Yun Feng will naturally feel a little pressure, so how could he easily compromise with the pain? The light of the sea god is an opportunity for them, and it is the most critical part of the sea god's test. Although he only endured pressure once in the light of the sea god, but facing the pain in front of him, even Yun Feng himself was surprised at his endurance. Chapter 482 Climb. It seemed that it was because of the oppression of the sea god's light yesterday that his endurance increased. Under the influence of these multiple reasons, Yun Feng was on the verge of collapse. Under the intense pain, he wanted to see how powerful a soul ring he could absorb. At this moment, Douluo waved to the others, drawing everyone's attention to herself, and pointed to the stairs leading to the sea god temple. It was unknown how long it would take Yun Feng to absorb the soul ring, and with the sea god Bo-Sexy here, this place could be said to be a relatively safe place. Instead of continuing to watch here, it would be better to seize every opportunity to practice. Douluo's proposal was immediately responded to by everyone, and they walked to the stairs together. Bo-Sexy did not look at them, but a faint smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. Try your own limits. Before climbing, attach all the auxiliary abilities to yourself, and then bear the pressure brought by the light of the sea god. This way, you can climb as many steps as possible. Don't help each other. Climb only by your own ability to see where your current limits are. When you feel that your body can't bear it, retreat immediately. Don't retreat too fast. Feel the body relax because of the reduced pressure. This is like a triangular exercise method. From the lowest to the highest, and then from the highest to the lowest. This should be the best effect. After coming down, don't rush to enter the state of cultivation. I have another idea that we can try. Douluo's strength and wisdom have long been recognized by the sisters, so everyone recognizes Douluo. So after hearing Douluo's words, the girls looked at each other. They all had a full set of soul bones. Only Zizenzu had not absorbed it now. When they were on the Zizenzu, Yun Feng also asked Zizenzu to choose a set. So Zizenzu didn't go forward, but stayed where she was, quietly absorbing the soul bones. Hulina, Dao Wu and others went up first. Ning Rong and Zhuzukin were behind them. A layer of black light surged from Zhuzukin's body, and the sixth soul ring on her body quietly emerged. Although she was under the sunlight, she seemed to be hidden in a special darkness at this time. It was Zhuzukin's sixth soul skill, Nether Possession. Nether Possession, the secret of the skill. Dodge rate increased by 50%, self-resistance increased by 20%, and attack piercing effect increased by 30%. This is the only auxiliary skill among Zhuzukin's 6 soul skills. She is a quick attack soul master, known for her agility and attack. Unlike other strong attack soul masters, the strength of the main body is more important. It is quite good to have such an auxiliary skill. This nether possession may not be useful to others, but for Zhuzukin, the 50% dodge rate and 20% resistance make her have greater survivability in battle, and the 30% piercing effect makes her attack even more terrifying. At this time, she used this auxiliary skill to increase the 20% resistance. As for whether the dodge effect can withstand the pressure of the sea god's light, she didn't think much about it. Ning Rong seemed extremely extravagant. She directly threw the 4 most useful amplification abilities for her to advance in the sea god's light, namely Strength Amplification, Agility Amplification, Soul Power Amplification, and Defense Amplification, on herself. Only then did she start with Zhuzukin, just as Douluo expected. After applying various amplification effects in advance, everyone's resistance to the sea god's light was greatly enhanced. In addition, Yun Feng and the others who were walking in front of them already had experience. During the first 20 steps of the climb, they were like ordinary people climbing mountains, maintaining a good speed. After more than 20 steps, the difference in strength began to show. Shui Binger and Huo Wu kept climbing at the same speed, while Zhu Xian slowed down. However, even so, Zhuzukin behind her quickly surpassed the 2 in front, which shows how terrifying the amplification skill effect is. At the same time, Ning Rong's situation also fully demonstrated her important role among the women. As long as she was there, the women could obtain amplification abilities at will, which was also an important reason why Yun Feng was sure that everyone could pass the test of the Sigage light smoothly. When Ningrong climbed to her last limit of 40 steps, her speed had become extremely slow. Although she had given herself an increase in strength at the beginning, her physical strength was still far behind her companions. If she had not eaten a fairy-grade herb and a bunch of soul bones, it would have been impossible for her to climb here with the physical condition of an auxiliary soul master. In the end, Ningrong stopped at the 46th step and began to go down. Although she only climbed 6 steps, it was enough to prove that Guidobuina's suggestion was very effective. At this time, Shui Binger, Huo Wu, Huliina, Dawu, and Zhuzuqin had all exceeded the 50th step. Zhu Xianyun had also climbed to the 33rd step, and Shui Dubuer was at the 44th step. After all, she did not follow Yun Feng as early as Ningrong. Soon, the limits of several people were reached. Zhu Xianyun relied on Ningrong's auxiliary increase ability and finally fell behind Shui Binger by only 4 steps, stopping at the 40th step. Zhuzuqin, who used the nether possession, also climbed to the 60th step. Due to the large consumption of soul power, they also did not dare to delay and slowly retreated. Shui Binger also could not hold on any longer and left here with Zhuge Yan. They also began to retreat. Only Zhao Wu and Huliina were left on the stairs. Bang, bang, bang. The two stepped on the 65th step. Zhao Wu and Huliina's movements obviously paused. Her limit was about to be reached, and her breathing became obviously heavy. However, the two women discovered one thing, that is, under the huge pressure from the outside world, they found that the speed of their soul power running in their bodies was obviously faster than when they practiced on their own. This was not only the reason for their accelerated urging, but also the body's instinctive pull to replenish soul power under huge pressure. Bones, muscles and meridians struggled to resist under pressure and needed sufficient nutrients, and their internal strength was obviously the key to driving the nutrients to fill the need. A few more steps. Bang, bang. The two girls almost used all their strength in this attack. Although the pressure was gradually reduced as they retreated, they still felt that their bodies had been drained. Just when they thought they might be thrown away again, a cool breath spread from their feet to their bodies, and energy waves full of vitality spread throughout their bodies. At the same time, an arm with power took shape and grabbed their shoulders, stabilizing their bodies with a gentle force. Chapter 483 Divine Skill. After feeling the source and breath of energy, the two girls smiled at Guidobuina, and then they successfully retreated down the mountain. The bodies of the girls were soaked in sweat again, and they were as embarrassed as they could be. But the process from extreme pain to extreme relaxation made them feel refreshed. Guidobuina was about to say something to the sisters. On the other side, Yun Feng, there was a violent energy fluctuation, which attracted the attention of the exhausted people. The golden light on Yun Feng's body had changed at this time, turning into a circle of red halo surrounding his body. Although Guidobuina and the others were still dozens of meters away from Yun Feng, they could clearly feel how huge the soul power around his body was. Every injection of soul power caused Yun Feng's body to undergo subtle changes. The pain on his face had disappeared, and his calm expression formed a sharp contrast with the sweat on his cheeks. Finally, the circles of red light condensed together and turned into a huge red halo that slowly shrank towards his body, and his original 6 soul rings also bloomed with brilliant light. At this time, the final moment has come. The sound of breaking through the air suddenly sounded, and the huge vine phantom behind Yun Feng seemed to condense into shape, covering the sky and the sun, rising into the sky, and began to absorb the bright moonlight above the sky. Under the guidance of the Blue-Silver Emperor, the moonlight almost swallowed up Yun Feng's entire body. The soaring giant vine continued to shrink in the air, and finally shrank into a small ball, circling above Yun Feng. Wherever the Blue-Silver Emperor passed, blue-gold light beads were left in the air, and then fell from the sky, landing 30 meters behind Yun Feng, and then suddenly rushed forward, instantly rushing into Yun Feng's body from behind. In an instant, Yun Feng's clothes were all broken into pieces at the same time. His entire back was covered by the Blue-Silver Emperor that was rushing in. The moonlight shrank and slowly sank into his back like a tattoo. Yun Feng opened his eyes at the same moment when the pattern of the moonlight disappeared behind him. At that moment, his eyes turned completely dark blue. The intense Yayun force suddenly rose from around his body and flew into the air 100 meters high before slowly returning. Yun Feng let out a long roar, and the muscles in his body seemed to shrink a little. The whole person became more refined. Although he was still handsome, everyone could feel how powerful the energy contained in Yun Feng's body was at this moment. 2 purple, 4 black, and 1 red, 7 soul rings were neatly arranged around Yun Feng's body. As the Yayun force gradually calmed down, he finally obtained his 7th soul ring. The dark blue light in his eyes gradually shrank and turned into sea blue, and uncontrollable joy poured out of his eyes. Yun Feng smiled at Poseidon Buo Bosexi in front of him and said, "Thank you for your help, Senior." Bosexi smiled and responded to him. When the chill on Yun Feng disappeared, she quickly turned around and left in the direction of the Poseidon temple. Her footsteps seemed to be stepping on the clouds, and her body rose with it. Her voice seemed to be heard in every corner of the 4 directions. "When the next person reaches the bottleneck, I will appear again." With a flash of light and shadow, Bosexi's figure disappeared without a trace. Yun Feng raised his head and looked at the direction where Bosexi disappeared in a daze, muttering, "It's interesting." The women almost all endured their own weakness and looked at Yun Feng with red faces. "It seems to be a little bigger." Yun Feng was stunned for a moment. He found that the women were looking at him with a smile. He subconsciously looked at his body and immediately found that his clothes had disappeared. His body was naked, even if it was his wife. This scene still made Yun Feng a little shy. She quickly covered her vital parts with her hands, ran quickly to a big tree nearby, and took out spare clothes from the storage soul guide and put them on. Huo Wu laughed and said, "Why are you running? Don't worry, we are not interested in your big white apple. It's not like we haven't seen it before." Shui Binger didn't laugh with the other girls at this time, but came to Gudubuina and said, "Sister Gudubuina, I can't do it anymore. I'm very weak. I think I need to start practicing." Gudubuina nodded and said, "Don't worry, I have an idea. If you practice in the light of the sea god, what will be the effect? Have you thought about it?" Juzukin and Ningrong turned around. Although they were also weak, they looked at Gudubuina with surprise in their eyes. Juguyen on the side smiled bitterly and said, "Sister Gudubuina, you have so many ideas. You are going to be tortured again." Gudubuina smiled and said, "When you practice in the light of the sea god, you will be under pressure from the outside world at any time, and I found that under the pressure of the light of the sea god, your own soul power will circulate faster than when you usually activate it, just like using soul skills. In this way, if everything goes well, the speed of your soul power practice will become faster." Shui Binger's eyes lit up and she said, "Okay, then let's try it." "Which step is more suitable for practice?" Gudubuina pondered for a while and said, "Let's start from the first step. It really works after trying it. You can gradually increase it in the future. Don't rush it." At this time, Yun Feng had changed his clothes and walked out. After hearing what Gudubuina said, he also said, "Nair is right. We can all try it." After seeing Yun Feng come out, the girls smiled at each other and said, "Husband, how about your 7th soul skill?" Hearing the wives' question, Yun Feng immediately became proud. "Not bad. All the skills of the Blue-Silver Emperor are amplified by 100%, and any vine released by the Blue-Silver Emperor can become my host. In other words, unless all the vines are destroyed in an instant, I can always make my body appear anywhere within the range of the vines to avoid attacks." After hearing Yun Feng's words, the women's eyes were wide open. "Your original ability to save your life was so outrageous. And you can still do this now. Is this a 100,000-year spirit ring? It's really amazing. I remember that my husband's vines can be summoned in a lot at will." Yes, the vines created by the spirit skills can also split into 2, and now they can dodge. It's simply unreasonable. Yun Feng looked at the women's discussion and smiled. Gudubuina said directly after seeing this, Okay. Yun Feng has consumed a lot of energy just now. Let's practice in the light of the sea god together. You can try to see if it works. If there are any adverse reactions, stop immediately. Before starting, Feng directly summoned the blue-silver domain to cover the women, allowing them to recover all their conditions, and then re-entered the range of the light of the sea god. The stairs leading to the sea god temple are 10 meters wide, enough for a dozen people to sit cross-legged. Just as Zhou said, her current body will not be damaged at all under normal pressure. Chapter 484. Did Xur also take this path? Although it was only one step, the omnipresent pressure of the sea god's light still squeezed everyone's body comprehensively. They sat down slowly and began to gather their own soul power according to their own practice methods. As soon as they started practicing, they discovered what Guduina said. Under the pressure of the sea god's light from the outside world, the speed of their own soul power increased significantly. Even without deliberately controlling it, it was faster than the speed of their self-cultivation on weekdays. It was like the soul power was operating on its own under the stimulation of the outside world. Soon, everyone was surprised to find that practicing on this first step, the soul power recovery speed was faster than their practice outside the stairs. Gradually, they entered a meditative state, and at the same time they all realized that this first test, crossing, and the sea god's light might be a rare opportunity in their lives. After all, this kind of wool pulling is really too comfortable. Wuhan Hall. Douluo Hall. Douluo Hall is located at the top of the Wuhan Hall's Divine Mountain. It has the momentum of reaching the top. Compared with the Pope's Hall, Douluo Hall is smaller. However, the titles of all the titled Douluo are enshrined here. There is no gorgeous decoration in the Douluo Hall. The whole building is made of simple rocks. But if you look closely, you will find that there is a very faint golden light on these simple rocks. If you touch it with your hand, you will feel a strange energy flowing in your palm. In addition to the entrance direction, the 3 high walls of the Douluo Hall are enshrined with square plaques of brilliant gold. Each plaque is about 10 meters high and 1 foot high, with only 3 or 4 big words on it. Looking around, the total number of golden plaques on the 3 walls is not less than 100. Each of these plaques symbolizes a titled Douluo who was awarded a title here after the Douluo Hall was built. In the middle of the Douluo Hall, there stands a statue. It is a statue that is 10 meters high and brilliant gold. 3 pairs of wings are spread out behind it, and a huge golden sword is held high in its hand and pointed directly at the sky. The most peculiar thing is that there seems to be a layer of light golden flames swirling around the golden sword. There is also a similar statue in the Elder Hall of the Spirit Hall, but compared with this one, if there is any difference between the two, then it is the soul. Yes, although the statue in the Elder Hall is also huge, it lacks a soul. And the huge statue in front of you itself gives people a feeling of being the strongest. The hundreds of golden plaques of the titles of the titled Douluo around it are sleeping peacefully under the suppression of its aura. This is the Supreme Hall of Soul Masters. Every Soul Master is proud to be able to enter the Douluo Hall, because it means that they have reached the level of titled Douluo. Only when they get the title, they can enter here. The Douluo Hall was not actually built by the Spirit Hall. According to legend, the Douluo Hall appeared long before the Spirit Hall appeared. The earliest Spirit Hall was established in the name of worshipping the Douluo Hall, and it gathered a group of powerful soul masters who revered the Douluo Hall. The Douluo Hall has a Hall Master, who must be the most respectful person in the Douluo Hall. He is the one who enshrines the Douluo gold plaque here and presides over the ceremony for the enthronement of all newly promoted titled Douluo. At this moment, a person was kneeling quietly in front of the huge statue in the center of the Douluo Hall. She was neither a titled Douluo who came to be enthroned nor the Hall Master of the Douluo Hall. She had another identity, and it was because of this identity that she could stay here. She was sitting in front of the huge 6-winged angel statue that was very symbolic. Her wavy long hair was scattered behind her, hanging down to the ground. Her hands were in a strange posture in front of her chest, with her thumbs interlocked, her index fingers touching, and the other 6 fingers spread out to the sides, looking like a 6-winged angel spreading its wings. Her delicate face was full of reverence, and her eyes were closed. There was always a faint halo around her. This person was Qian Renxu, the daughter of the previous generation of the Pope of the Spirit Hall. "Is your heart calm?" The majestic and calm voice echoed in the Douluo Hall. Qian Renxu, who seemed to have turned into a statue, did not move. She did not speak, and still sat cross-legged quietly, maintaining her original posture. The golden light surged, and a figure appeared between her and the huge statue. The figure gradually became clear, and the golden light around it became obviously stronger, especially the huge six-winged angel statue. The huge golden sword spewed out a flame that was more than 10 feet long. It filled the place with an indescribable sacred atmosphere. The figure that appeared in front of Qian Renxu was the chief worshipper of the Spirit Hall, the master of the Douluo Hall, Qian Douluo. Qian Douluo was one of the 3 great 99-level titled Luos in the world. Open your eyes. Qian Douluo raised his hand and pointed, and the golden flame released from the long sword in the hands of the statue behind him fell from the sky, completely covering Qian Renxu's body. The golden charcoal flowed, and Qian Renxu's body was slowly pulled up under the cover of the light. The golden light did not change, but 9 golden light screens gradually appeared in front of Qian Renxu. Seeing these 9 light screens, Qian Douluo's eyes revealed a special and strange brilliance. Angel 9 tests. 9 tests. The 9 tests that countless generations of Douluo Palace masters have been waiting for have finally appeared. Qian Renxu opened her eyes with some difficulty, and looked at her grandfather in front of her in confusion. Qian Douluo's eyes flickered with a soft light. I was about 70 years old when I had your father, and your father was 50 years old when he had you. The person that generations of Douluo Palace masters have been waiting for is actually you, Xiaoxu. Grandpa is proud of you. Qian Renxu stared at Qian Douluo blankly. Grandpa, I don't quite understand what you mean. Qian Douluo smiled indifferently and said, if there are 8 light screens in front of you, then you will be the next lord of the Earth Douluo Palace, but the light screen that appears in front of you is 9. Don't ask why. When I should tell you, I will naturally tell you. From now on, for a long time in the future, you have to complete the 9 tests from the angels, and Grandpa will always be with you. Yes, in fact, Qian Renxu already knew it. Yun Feng told her all this, but she didn't know why she still didn't tell her grandfather about it. Maybe she was worried that her grandfather would come to ask. The Pope's palace, the Pope's secret room. Bibi Dong, who was sitting cross-legged and practicing, slowly opened her eyes. If someone was in front of her at this time, they would be surprised to find that Bibi Dong's eyes were completely blood red, and the bright blood color seemed to drip blood at any time. On the fingers of her hands, each had a 5-inch long, black nail, which formed a sharp contrast with her own fair skin. Originally a noble and beautiful face, now it looked full of evil and seductiveness, and even had traces of blood. Behind her, an invisible black shadow emerged, the beauty of brokenness. Opening her eyes, Bibi Dong took a deep breath, and a layer of black and purple light surged. The changes on her body gradually disappeared, and she returned to her original appearance. But she looked a little pale. Xur also took this path. I wonder how Yunfen is now. After murmuring for a while, Bibi Dong continued to calm down and began to practice. However, the huge black shadow seemed a little helpless at this time, as if wondering if he had chosen the wrong person. Why did the resentment seem to disappear all of a sudden? Chapter 485 Breakthrough. 1 month later, with a hissing sound, the swollen muscles stretched open the lapels of his clothes. Yun Feng roared and soared into the air. His strong body showed unparalleled strong muscles. His body soared into the sky under the huge elastic force of the sea god's light. However, he is no longer the Yun Feng who could not control his body in the sea god's light. His body rotated twice in the air, golden light flashed, and he landed calmly. A month has passed, and Yun Feng and the women have practiced here for a whole month. During this period, Yun Feng continued to bring the other women here. Under the hidden breath, Poseidon did not find anything wrong, and the sea god was the same. However, this month brought them a feeling of being in another world. At this time, the place where they practiced was already placed on the 10th step of the stairs leading to the sea god temple. They practiced in the pressure from all directions. Today, 1 month later, although the sea god's light is still a pressure for them, it has also become the greatest enjoyment. Just ask. Every day after the end of the training, you can clearly feel that your soul power is greatly improved. No matter how much pressure you bear, How can that sense of accomplishment and full of power not be enjoyment? Everyone's soul power has increased by one level, including Yun Feng, who has just broken through. Now he has reached the level of 73. The results of practicing in the light of the sea god are huge. The huge pressure has become the best catalyst for practice. In this light of the sea god, even if you are sleeping, the soul power in your body will operate automatically. Moreover, how can Yun Feng and others waste this good time? After a month of hard work, no one complained under the stimulation of the pleasure brought by continuous progress. With tenacious perseverance, the strength of the women is steadily improving. Moreover, they have gradually adapted to the pressure brought by the light of the sea god. The number of steps that can be climbed has risen sharply. Now you can climb 60 steps with your own strength. When the tundra rifle is at full strength, it is close to 100 steps. For them, the most enjoyable thing is to climb the steps to the limit of the body and then retreat to the steps below to practice. Although it can only be done 3 times a day at most, but the result of these 3 times is that the soul power grows in leaps and bounds. Otherwise, there would not be such a huge effect within a month. Practicing in the light of the sea god is like returning to the time when my soul power was still weak, that period of high-speed practice. According to the current practice speed, in this first year of the test, everyone can at least improve 6 to 7 levels, or even more, if it is replaced by normal practice, at their current level. It will take at least 3 times more time to achieve this result. Yun Feng's practice is undoubtedly the most hard-working, because he has the motivation that no one else has. It is not from the 9 tests of the sea god, but from responsibility. He promised many things, and now the gods in the sky don't know when they will find Guduina, which is what he is worried about. So with such a good opportunity, Yun Feng didn't let go of any time. Every day, except for eating and cleaning the body, all other time is spent on practice, forgetting to eat and sleep to improve soul power. Although his soul power only increased by 1 level in the first month, his unremitting efforts and the opening of the 8 meridians have made him reach the bottleneck of breakthrough. In 5 days at most, he will be able to make another breakthrough. 1 year, the light of the sea god only gives them 1 year. How much they can improve in this year depends on their own efforts. If they don't release the benefits of this year to the maximum extent, how can they be worthy of the sea god's wool in the dark? Every morning, there will be a special sea soul master to deliver fresh food, and then leave silently. No one will appear to disturb them again. It can be said that in the past month, Yun Feng and others have soaked at least the first 70 steps with their sweat, except for Zizhenzu and Zhuzian, who can only barely climb to the 57th step. The rest of the women can climb to more than 70 steps at this time. Among them, the most obvious progress is Ningrong Narong, who has the worst physical condition. Under the pressure of the light of the sea god, her body's ability to resist pressure is greatly improved every day. Now when she releases her martial soul, she can even vaguely see a layer of misty light emerging from her body. Time passed in this almost crazy spontaneous hellish practice. Another 2 months passed. Zizhenzu and Zhuzian finally succeeded in breaking through level 650. Although it was unlikely that she would obtain the god-given soul ring, Yun Feng also told her that the effect of continuous practice would naturally come out after she got the soul ring. There was no need to rush to obtain the soul ring, just keep practicing hard. Anyway, it can be accumulated. And just when the last day of the 3rd month after they came here passed, Yun Feng, who was sitting on the 30th step to practice, suddenly opened his eyes. The crystal blue light surrounded his body and the golden mist produced by the light of the sea god was shining. The incomparable powerful aura awakened the others who were practicing. When everyone's eyes fell on Yun Feng, they were surprised to find that Yun Feng seemed to be releasing a special light all over his body. Dozens of blue-silver emperors that looked like they were carved from crystal spread out from under him, arranged in a neat spiral, around Yun Feng's body. The light mist formed by the blue and white light twisted into a strand. Slowly climbing up into the air, Yun Feng's skin also turned completely blue and white at this time. Husband, what happened? In fact, Yun Feng also wanted to say that he didn't know. He just simply broke through the first level of soul power. Why was there such a big commotion? Perhaps it noticed Yun Feng's thoughts, and the commotion quickly disappeared. Nothing, just a simple breakthrough of the first level. Not a big deal. Hearing this, the women didn't know why they wanted to beat Yun Feng up. He really deserved a beating. However, Yun Feng didn't rest too much, and directly devoted himself to cultivation. He wanted to try it before. He is now a soul saint. He can release the realm of martial soul true body. Before, he just wanted to experience it more and get familiar with it. Now that his soul power has been promoted again, he directly upgraded his cultivation location to the 70th step. He is confident that he can also practice at this position. Of course, before starting to practice, he must first test the results of his strength improvement to see how many steps he can climb on this difficult road, so as to prepare for the final clearance. When Yun Feng stepped into the light of Sigurd, he stopped and a look of astonishment appeared on his face, because he found that the pressure originally filled with the light of Sigurd seemed to have disappeared, and after stepping onto the first step, it seemed that there was no difference from being outside. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 486, Hard Training. What's going on? Did the pressure from the Sigurd's light disappear? No, it's impossible. His wives are still practicing, which proves that there is no problem with the Sigurd's light. With a skeptical attitude, Yun Feng continued to climb up. He climbed all the way to the 20th step, and Yun Feng felt a little pressure, and his mind suddenly became clear. It's not that the pressure from the Sigurd's light disappeared, but that his ability to withstand pressure has made a leap forward. In fact, after the test of the God-given soul ring, Yun Feng's body broke through the limit again, and his ability to resist pressure soared. The pressure from the Sigurd's light near the periphery naturally had little effect on him. Since the pressure was negligible, Yun Feng didn't feel anything. Continued to climb up, and soon, Yun Feng climbed to the 70th step. When he got here, he found that this position was not suitable for his practice, because the pressure was not enough. The pressure here was not as high as the place where he practiced before the breakthrough. Without opening the two major domains, and his body just recovered, Yun Feng still had to be reserved in this climbing attempt. After all, he had just broken through, so he couldn't hit the limit all at once. With the two major areas as a backing, it will be much easier when I retreat. Continuing to climb upwards, Yun Feng soon passed the limit he could reach before and climbed to the 80th step. At this point, the pressure of full squeeze was felt again, but it was not very big. Taking a deep breath, Yun Feng continued to climb up. When he climbed to the 120th step, his pace of progress slowed down. Yun Feng found that after climbing the 100th step, the pressure was obviously increased by a level, just like his own qualitative leap in strength. When he came here, the pressure of the sea god's light also took a leap. This discovery made him understand that the most difficult black level test for the women was probably the last 8 steps. Don't underestimate these last few steps, because the pressure has undergone a qualitative leap. Each step forward has to pay a much greater price than before. What's more, in the previous climb, the soul power must have been consumed a lot. Under the sudden increase in pressure, it is indeed not an easy task to complete this final climb. He continued to climb steadily and continuously, and his body's superb ability to resist pressure gradually emerged. The trident mark on Yun Feng's forehead released dazzling golden light. Every step he took, he felt a sense of conquest in his heart. 108. The steps that needed to be passed in the black level test had long been left far behind by Yun Feng. You know, Yun Feng is not an ordinary soul saint now. With 3 soul bones and a 100,000-year soul ring, his body is stronger than that of ordinary titled Douluo. Even so, after he passed the 120th step, he also felt his body was obviously heavy, and it became very difficult to climb any level. Taking a breath, Yun Feng looked up. Under the influence of the golden mist rising around his body, the scenery above was a little blurry. The test he had to pass was not 108, but 333. Judging from the current situation, his 2 major domains were fully opened from the beginning, and the maximum climbing level would probably not exceed 170 steps, which was less than half the distance of the test. In the wives' amplification skills, can he really pass the test of the 333 steps? A big question mark appeared in Yun Feng's heart, but it soon disappeared. Tang San could do it, so there was no reason why he couldn't do it. There was less than half a year left. Although the speed of cultivation in the Sigurd's light was much faster than in the outside world, Yun Feng still believed that he could complete it. After all, in his opinion, to complete his first test, crossing, double, Sigurd's light, although it was not easy, it was not impossible. He didn't continue to climb. The huge pressure around him had already made the soul power in Yun Feng's body run at an unprecedented speed. The body that had just broken through still needed time to adapt. Yun Feng was not stupid, and of course he would not do anything to force the issue. He didn't open the field, and slowly retreated from the 120th step. When he retreated to the 110th step, he stopped and hesitated slightly. According to the feeling of practicing under pressure before, the position of the 100th step was more suitable for his current practice. Taking advantage of the fact that he still had a lot of soul power left at this time, Yun Feng sat down at the 100th step. Half a year later, at the foot of Sigurd Mountain, Yun Feng and his group stood in a row, quietly watching the white figure struggling to climb the stairs leading to the Sea God Temple. Today is the last day of the first level of the Sea God test that they have to go through. There is only one chance to pass the level, but everyone is still not afraid. After all, with Yun Feng's presence, even if they fail, they can leave at any time, although they are not sure that they can complete this test 100%. However, this is why they must launch this final attack with all their might. Only under the drive of getting more money can they stimulate their potential to the greatest extent. A year has passed, and the mental outlook of the women has greatly improved. Everyone's eyes have a firmness that they never had before coming here. Under great pressure, they have been practicing until now, so that they have made great progress in their bodies, soul power and perseverance. Just a month ago, Shui Binger and others finally completed the process of qualitative change. With the help of the God-given soul ring, they broke through the bottleneck of level 70 and reached the same soul saint realm as Yun Feng, and the others have also improved to varying degrees. 1 year of hard training in the light of the Sea God made each of them grow greatly, and their soul power increased by at least level 7. This is almost an impossible task for their level of training. However, they also made great efforts this year, practicing almost without sleep, and of course, they also made babies. Zi Zhenzu and Zhu Xiaoyun were already pregnant in this year, but despite this, they still failed to achieve the set goal. Not only Yun Feng, but everyone else broke through level 70 and achieved a qualitative leap. Now the women also absolutely believe that they have the ability to complete this first test. At this moment, it was Zi Zhenzu and Zhu Xiaoyun who were climbing the ladder. Before Yun Feng and others officially started to attack the first test, the two women were testing their own progress. Although she had already reached the level of level 72 soul power, she was very slow to improve her soul power because of her talent. However, the hard training these days has also made Zhu Xiaoyun and Zi Zhenzu's physical stress resistance ability have made great progress. Yun Feng and others also believe that once she can successfully pass this high pressure, then her soul power will have a leapfrog growth. As for what level they could be promoted to, he couldn't guess, but Yun Feng was sure that in the past year, the two girls had worked silently, no less than the other girls, or in other words, they were influenced by the other girls. Chapter 487 Don't Worship Me, I'm Just a Legend. The two girls have a completely new understanding of cultivation. They are no longer the former leader of the Purple Pearl Pirates, nor are they the future queens of the Xingyuo Empire. Husband, how high do you think they can climb? Daowu touched Yun Feng, who was concentrating on watching Zhu Xiaoyun and Zi Zhenzu. Yun Feng shook his head and said, it's hard to say. I have never seen her climb with all her strength. However, I believe that they have gained a lot in the past year, not only in physical and soul improvement, but more importantly, in the training of the mind. With this year's experience in the light of the Sea God, both she and us have a different attitude when facing difficulties. We will not be afraid, will not retreat, but will conquer. After hearing Yun Feng's words, Daowu looked at him in surprise. I didn't expect it. Husband, When did you become so philosophical and literary in your words? Yun Feng's eyes still didn't leave the two women who were climbing. He snorted and said, "Don't worship me. I'm just a legend." "You're a legend." But they seem to have reached a bottleneck. Sure enough, Zhu Xian and Zizhenzu had already climbed to the 91st step, a height they had never reached before. They climbed without any help from anyone, relying entirely on their own abilities. Their bodies moved forward and trembling. Every step they took became extremely difficult, but Zizhenzu and Zhu Xian didn't mean to give up at all. They gritted their teeth, tilted their bodies slightly, and operated their soul power to the limit. They put away the phantoms that appeared after releasing their martial spirits, trying to reduce the resistance of their climbing as much as possible and continue to move upward. 92, 93, 94. It took a whole stick of incense to climb these 3 steps. Surrounding the two women was not only the golden light, but also thick mist. That was due to the sweat that was steaming from their bodies. This was the last chance to attack. Zhu Xian and Zizhenzu were not willing to give up easily, but their bodies had reached their limits. At the 94th step, she raised her legs again and again, and put them down again and again. "No, I must be able to move forward, even if it is just 1 step." The two women shouted desperately in their hearts. They did not have the talent of Yun Feng and others. Even if they absorbed the fairy grass later, they were still a little short. However, they had been with the women for these days, and their hearts were fully infected by them, especially Yun Feng's spirit of never giving up when he was under the test of a God-given soul ring before, which deeply touched them. They deeply understood how important it was to work hard in the future to become a truly powerful soul master. From 94 to 95, it was just a short step, but for Zhu Xian and Zizhenzu, it was a new breakthrough. Her strength was not enough, but she would never give up. Yun Feng and others who were watching her below had unconsciously clenched their fists. "Come on, you can do it. You can definitely do it." For the 10th time, the two women raised their right legs. This time, they did not put them down, but moved forward with difficulty. It seemed that there were countless forces pulling them from behind. Even if they only moved forward a little, it was so difficult. A faint blood color began to appear on the white clothes of Zizhenzu and Zhu Xian. It was the blood that oozed from the pores under the huge pressure. It can be seen how much they were overdrawn, but even so, Zizhenzu and Zhu Xian's raised legs were still moving forward. Although Yun Feng had the blue-silver emperor martial spirit and a bunch of healing herbs, after seeing this scene, he still couldn't help shouting directly to the top, "Xian, Zhenzu, if it really doesn't work, you can come down. It's okay. I still have the fairy grass that improves talent. It just takes a while to ripen it." "No," the two women shouted fiercely, and a puff of blood mist burst out from them. The next moment, their bodies finally stepped on the 95th step. Bang dash! The two white figures with blood color soared into the sky like cannonballs. After climbing the 95th step, Zizhenzu and Zhu Xian could no longer resist the tremendous pressure of the sea god's light, and their bodies bounced out. Almost at the same time, the sound of breaking through the air sounded, and the blue-gold figure rushed into the sky. He intercepted the two women who looked like broken wings in midair, hugged their delicate bodies tightly, and fell from the sky. He looked at them with a distressed face and said, "Fools, why do you force yourself so much?" Falling into Yun Feng's warm and generous embrace, the two women's bodies softened. They could no longer muster a bit of strength, but a smile of relief appeared on their pretty faces. After looking at each other, they said directly, We don't want to fall behind you too much, and we don't want to be a vase. You also want to. Come on." Just saying this sentence, the next moment, they fainted in Yun Feng's arms. At this moment, the direction of the sea god temple suddenly lit up, and a black light fell from the sky, shining directly on the foreheads of the two women. The purple light spot that had originally appeared because of the completion of the test reappeared, and under the illumination of the black light, the purple gradually turned black. Your persistence and your efforts are no longer limited by the purple level. The Lord of the Sea has given you the authority of the black level as an exception. You will be upgraded to the black level after passing the test. The voice of the sea god Buo Bosexi came faintly. Although there was a difference of several hundred meters from the foot of the mountain to the sea god temple, her voice seemed to ring in her ears. Zhu Xian and Zizhenzu used their persistence to gain the recognition of the sea god. They were directly upgraded from completing the 3 tests of the purple level to the 3 tests of the black level. Their own soul power also underwent some subtle changes. However, the specific benefits will not be shown until they wake up. At the same time, after passing the purple level test, she will no longer be attacked when crossing the Ring Sea. And she is also qualified to climb the Sea God Mountain. Seeing Yunfeng hugging Zhu Xian and Zizhenzu with heartache, the women also came to them. After watching Yunfeng transfer the life energy and feeling their breath become stable, they were relieved. After placing the 2 aside, Yunfeng also raised his head, and his eyes converged with those of the women in the air. Yunfeng slowly raised his clenched right fist, stared at his wives, and shouted in a deep voice, "It's our turn, let's start." Yunfeng was extremely confident in his own strength at this moment, and so were the other women. After such a long period of hard training, all of them were soul saints, and all of them had obtained God-given soul rings. Yunfeng's test was the 333rd step, but he was confident that nothing could stop him. Chapter 488 Draining most of the sea god. After the girls exchanged a simple glance, they started climbing. After the 80th step, the girls' speed slowed down significantly, but their steps became more solid. They continued to climb up firmly and powerfully without stopping. They knew that the real test for them would only begin now. The 90th, 91st, 92nd, and the next dozen steps did not hinder them at all. When they climbed the 92nd step, they all used their soul skills to help. At this point, their climbing became obviously more difficult. With each step forward, their bodies would shake slightly, but their steps were still stable. It was not until the 100th step that the girls paused for the first time. The overwhelming pressure and the blurred light around their bodies had made them sweat profusely. Fortunately, Yunfeng's life energy constantly stimulated their vitality. The Killing God domain and the Blue-Silver domain gave them unparalleled confidence, so they could continue to climb. The girls had agreed to climb together, without any order of precedence, so Yunfeng was the only one at the bottom of the mountain at this time. However, Yunfeng was not very worried about this, because there was also Guiduina climbing. Although Guiduina was dismissive of this matter, she had developed feelings for these sisters after such a long time of getting along, so she took the initiative to choose to climb. However, compared with the others, Guiduina seemed extra relaxed. If she was not afraid of exposing her abnormality, Guiduina could even lead them directly to the top. It was not that she was afraid of being discovered. With Yunfeng's aura covering her, plus her own spatial ability, if she didn't want others to discover it, even the sea god would not be able to find anything abnormal. In Yunfeng's understanding, Guiduina should actually be called the god of elements. After all, her ability is too terrifying. Stepping on to the 100th step, the girls suddenly felt the pressure like a landslide and tsunami, causing them to almost slide down before they could stand firm. However, they managed to stabilize their shaky bodies. But at this moment, the women found that, let alone moving forward, they could not even lift their legs. The same situation that had happened to Zizhenzu and Zhu Xian before also happened to them. Fine blood beads gradually appeared on the surface of their skin. At this moment, Guiduina's eyes suddenly lit up, and the women felt that everything around them suddenly turned green, and then a huge amount of vitality was injected into their bodies. At the same time, they saw Guiduina use her soul power to connect the fingers of the women together, and green silk threads floated out from Guiduina's fingers and covered the bodies of the women. At the moment when the green silk was placed on them, they felt their whole bodies lighten, and the huge pressure that made them completely unable to move forward seemed to be reduced a little, and their soul power that was being rapidly consumed began to be replenished like silk threads. The women looked at Guiduina in surprise. This is the feeling of soul power injection. How did she do it? Not only did she replenish the soul power, but she also stimulated the vitality in her body. Although the input amplitude cannot be large, in this situation, it is definitely a timely help for the women. And with Guiduina's soul power, Even if the amplitude is not large, it is extremely terrifying for the women. Finally, the women continued to move forward, trembling all over and stepping forward step by step. With each step forward, the green light attached to their bodies would flash, and a stream of soul power would continue to be transmitted into the body. That is the purest life attribute, soul power stimulated by Douluo, which can be easily absorbed by any soul master. 106, 107, finally reached the last step. After the women looked at each other, they took a deep breath. At this moment, an indescribable touch and unparalleled faith instantly filled every corner of their bodies. It seemed that nothing could stop them from taking this last step. The women's eyes shone like stars, and they used all their strength to take their last step. 108. The women finally climbed the 108th step. In an instant, the pressure receded like a tide, and the sudden feeling of relief made them feel as if their bodies were about to fly. Blue light, white light, those golden light mists retreated in an instant like melting ice and snow. An unprecedented sense of pleasure spread throughout the body, and Yun Feng at the foot of the mountain also breathed a sigh of relief. Although he trusted them very much, he was still worried. Except for Wu, Huliana, and Ningrong, the girls heard a ding sound in their ears. A black gas floated out of the black six-pointed star pattern on the forehead. It condensed into a black square light curtain in front of them. The next moment, there was another ding sound. The black light curtain was instantly shattered, turning into dots of black light and re-injected into the eyebrows of the girls. A feeling of enlightenment suddenly came, and the girls only felt that their rapidly consumed soul power suddenly trembled, and a sense of power was generated from the inside out. A special voice sounded in the depths of their minds, the first of the 6 black level tests. Crossing, the light of the sea god, pass, soul power increases by 1 level. The soul power of the women directly jumped 1 level, and increased to the height of the 72nd and 73rd levels. Just when they wanted to thank Douluo, they found that Douluo had taken the remaining 3 women and sat down on the spot. Under Douluo's protection, these pressures were not difficult to overwhelm them. They practiced directly on it. It was a 108-step ladder. With Ningrong's physical strength, even if she had followed Yun Feng for so long, she would definitely not be able to bear it on the top. But at this time, Douluo directly helped them sit firmly on the top. As long as they waited for Yun Feng to arrive behind, they could continue to move forward. Because Douluo's sea god test was also completed, like the others, it was also an increase in soul power. But this level of soul power was based on the progress of the soul saint. If it was based on her original level 1 soul power, she might have to drain most of the sea god, and it might not be possible to do this. After all, she was originally a god. Even if the sea god was a first-level god, he was still 1 level lower than Douluo. Even if he fell to the mortal world, it was still the same. The women had already come down, and Yun Feng was the only one who had not gone up. The women looked at Yun Feng and hugged him one by one. Then they gave him instructions in his ear. Yun Feng smiled and nodded. After taking a deep breath, he opened his eyes and looked at the long stairs in front of him. Yun Feng had no more distracting thoughts in his mind. Although he had a way out, he remembered Douluo's kindness and had to go all out to attack. This way, he would not let her down. Chapter 489 Fully Armed. Before today, Yun Feng had only climbed to a height of more than 320 steps, and just yesterday, he was still practicing at the 250th step. Although his soul power only increased by 3 levels in the last 6 months, these 3 levels were quite difficult for him. After all, his soul power has reached a level of more than 70, and each level increase requires more effort. However, these 6 months have also made his body, which has entered the soul saint realm, particularly condensed. After the 136th step, the sea god's light did not increase in a leap-like manner, but only gradually increased the pressure. But even so, when it reached the 200th step, the pressure was also twice that of the 136th step. The pressure at the 333rd step can be imagined. And Yun Feng also guessed that since the 108th and 136th steps had a leap-like increase, Then there was no reason not to increase the 333rd step that he needed to pass. It can be imagined how huge the pressure he had to bear after reaching the 300th step was. Seeing the worry in the women's eyes, they have all experienced the power of the sea god's light. They are afraid that Yun Feng will hold on and won't come down even if he can't stand it. Something might happen to his body. Yun Feng smiled and said directly, "Don't worry, I won't be in trouble." His eyes showed unprecedented firmness. The wife's instructions completely stimulated Yun Feng's state, spirit, and it was raised to the peak in an instant. The martial soul was released, all the soul skills shown, the martial soul's true body appeared, and the state was directly pulled to the maximum. The blue-silver emperor leaned over, and half-body armor appeared on Yun Feng's body. The blue-silver domain, the killing god domain, the ice and fire dragon king soul bones on the left and right burst into light, and the wings behind him spread their wings. Then, under the gaze of the women, he operated the martial soul and directly absorbed the life energy to maintain the peak state. When Yun Feng began to climb, the women only saw a purple streamer flying upwards rapidly. In almost a few blinks of an eye, he had exceeded 100 steps. Soon, he came to the side of Ningrong, Huliina, and Zhao. Looking at the light released by Guduina, a trace of determination flashed in his eyes. After seeing Yun Feng coming up, the three women in Guduina did not hesitate, and stood up directly and followed Yun Feng. At this moment, Yun Feng was like a wind-breaking hand, using his own strength to help Zhao, Huliina, and Ningrong relieve the pressure. In addition to Guduina's help, Ningrong and the others no longer need to bear the pressure from the light of the sea god, so they can naturally climb again without restraint. Yun Feng maintained an astonishing speed and climbed quickly in the light of the sea god. Moreover, his climbing method was somewhat special. He did not move straight up and down, but moved diagonally. During the climbing process, suddenly, he came to the right side of the stairs after passing more than 10 steps from the left side of the stairs, and suddenly came to the left side of the stairs after passing more than 10 steps from the right side of the stairs. Overall, it was a snake-like way of moving forward. The snake-like movement can avoid the strongest pressure from the front as much as possible, saving some physical strength and soul power. The 200th step had arrived, and Yun Feng's speed immediately slowed down. With the amplification of Ningrong's 9 treasures glazed tower, he felt that his soul power was full and every part of his body was full of strength. Although the pressure of the frontal impact was so huge, it could not crush him at all. It seemed that he could only be conquered step by step under his feet. The other two women were also beside him, and they all unfolded their martial souls. Huliina also summoned her blue-silver domain and killing god domain to intersect with Yun Feng's domain, trying to help Yun Feng relieve some pressure. After passing the 210th step, Yun Feng secretly admired that the 9 treasures glazed tower was worthy of being the #1 auxiliary martial soul in the world. With the assistance of Ningrong, until now, his soul power could still keep pace with the consumption in rapid operation. In other words, he was still in peak condition, not to mention the existence of Huliina. Although the pressure of successfully passing the 220th step was huge, it still could not stop Yun Feng's pace. However, this situation suddenly changed after he continued to step over 2 steps. When Yun Feng stepped onto the 222nd step, he suddenly felt clearly that the pressure around him had changed unprecedentedly. If the previous pressure was like a person squeezed into a ball and had to bear the elastic force of the ball, then what he was facing at this time was like an iron ball. He had to crush the solid pressure in front of him before he could move forward. What was going on? The sudden increase in consumption made Yun Feng's whole body tense. Not only did his speed drop significantly, but his soul power consumption also increased geometrically. The golden mist rising around his body had turned into a light curtain, covering him, Zhao, Ningrong, and Huliina. From the foot of the Sea God Mountain to the Sea God Temple, there were exactly 1001 steps in total. Poseidon Buo Bosaxi stood quietly in front of the Sea God Temple, looking at the distant sky. A soft sigh echoed around her. It must be very painful. This is the test I faced back then. The passing condition for the top 8 tests is 228 steps. Starting from the 222nd step, the last 6 steps were like a test of hell for me. I can't forget it until today. Yun Feng, the road you have to climb is still very difficult, but since Lord Poseidon has chosen you, I believe you will succeed. Yun Feng naturally couldn't hear the voice of Poseidon Buo. The sudden difficulty of climbing caused his soul power to begin to consume faster, but he didn't stop, and didn't dare to stop. He knew that for him, the first test of the 9 tests of Poseidon has officially begun. Ningrong, Douluo and Huliina have completed the test at this time. The 3 women's faces turned slightly pale, seeing a strong red light rising from Ningrong, Douluo and Huliina. Yun Feng no longer stopped. He dispersed a part of his soul power to protect them as they went down the mountain. Surrounded by the red light, the strange red 7-pointed star on the foreheads of Ningrong, Douluo and Huliina bloomed with dazzling brilliance. Layers of red light swept down, surrounding their bodies in joy. The red light curtain spewed out from the 7-pointed star and shattered quietly, but it did not directly turn into a light spot and re-inject from the forehead like the black light curtain of others, but condensed into a red halo that fell from the sky, directly covering Ningrong's body, and then gradually merged into her body. Chapter 490 Break-In. Ningrong, Douluo, and Huliina heard a reminder in their minds. The first of the 7 top tests, crossing, enhancement, the light of the sea god, passed. Soul power increased by 1 level, and the power of the soul ring skills increased by 500 years. Ningrong had also heard about the rewards for Zhuzuking, Shuibinger, and Huowu after they passed the test, but there was no such item as the power of all soul ring skills increased by 500 years. Obviously, this is only available for the top test. It seems that the soul skill effect is enhanced by 500 years, which does not seem to be very important, but Ningrong, Douluo, and Huliina now have 7 soul rings, and the overall increase is as high as 3,000 years. For their soul skills after the 4th soul skill, this 500-year increase is naturally nothing, but for the previous soul skills, it has a considerable effect, especially the 1st and 2nd soul skills. The 1st soul skill is only a soul ring of 100 years, which has been increased to more than 900 years, and the 2nd soul skill has been directly increased from 700 years to more than 1,300 years, making the 2nd soul rings of the 3 women change from yellow to purple. Although the spirit skills of the martial soul are not affected by the quality of the spirit ring, the stronger the spirit ring, the less spirit power will be consumed when using the spirit skill. After the 7 spirit rings each increase their effect by 500 years, the consumption of the 3 women when they use their own spirit skills will be reduced. In particular, the duration of Ningrong's spirit skills will naturally increase accordingly. The colors of the 3 women's spirit rings also changed to yellow, purple, black, black. At this time, Yun Feng was still struggling to move forward, but after seeing that the 3 women were fine, he gritted his teeth and climbed up again. After Guduina took a deep look at Yun Feng, she left a ray of light on his body before going down. It was too conspicuous to stay up there all the time. Since her little sister had succeeded, she naturally didn't have to worry. She believed in Yun Feng, and Yun Feng had so many means to save his life. Nothing would happen. 230 levels, 240 levels, 250 levels, 30 steps in a row were conquered under Yun Feng's feet one after another. At this time, thick fog had risen from his body. The strange thing is that as soon as the mist evaporated from his body, it immediately turned into sparkling water droplets and then turned into red powder and dispersed. At the 260th step, Yun Feng paused for the first time. Helping the 3 women before, he had consumed a lot of soul power, causing his meridians and bones to make a rough sound that only he could hear. Yun Feng, who felt something was wrong, directly converted all the life energy absorbed by the Blue-Silver Emperor. This change made Yun Feng more powerful, and Yun Feng, who paused for a while, felt better. Starting again, climbing became more and more difficult. Even with the support of the martial soul, Yun Feng's blue-silver domain began to tremble violently. The pressure that could be completely blocked from the outside began to invade the domain like a thread. Not only did it oppress Yun Feng's body, it also began to put pressure on Yun Feng's body. At the 270th step, Yun Feng stopped for the second time, and layers of crystal sweat continued to break around his body. His soul power consumption had reached a very terrifying level, and it was becoming increasingly difficult to support his martial soul. There were still 63 steps to go, for himself and for his wife. He suddenly shouted in his heart. Yun Feng took another step, and the obsession in his heart began to work. In an instant, his speed even increased a few points compared to before, and he took the 10 steps from the 270th to the 280th step in one go. Stepping on the 281st step, Ning Rong at the foot of the mountain also saw Yun Feng's appearance at this time. Without any thought, she directly released her martial soul, regardless of her current state, and directly blessed Yun Feng with her soul skills. With the blessing of soul skills again, Yun Feng's strength in his body has grown a lot. Faced with this kind of oppression, the life energy of the Blue Silver Emperor has also recovered a lot under the external energy trigger. Yun Feng, who took another step, had to explode in advance at this time. Otherwise, if the soul power continued to be consumed, he was sure that he would not be able to face the final test. A surge of heat suddenly rose in the Danshan. The soul power that was originally being consumed rapidly expanded like a volcanic eruption, not only making Yun Feng feel lighter, but also making him excited. Soul power was also running to the extreme at this moment. The pace of advancement started again, and Yun Feng began to move forward very carefully. He knew that his situation would never last, not to mention that Ning Rong's current state could only last for a short time. His own body would also suffer irreparable damage if it remained in the current state under the pressure of both inside and outside for a long time. It was not the physical damage, but the mental damage. 209, 300. With the support of the Blue-Silver Domain and the Killing God Domain, Yun Feng finally climbed the 300 steps after consuming so much soul power. At the moment he stepped on the 300 steps, Yun Feng suddenly opened his mouth and sprayed out a purple-blue light mist. It was not that he wanted to do this, but after stepping on the 300 steps, the pressure brought by the light of the sea god was no longer just as simple as solid state, but also increased the extremely terrifying pressure. The gravity around the body was also increased by at least 3 times. Under the huge squeeze, Yun Feng had to open his mouth and spray out a mouthful of energy accumulated in his body, otherwise, his body would be crushed. In that mouthful of purple gold mist, there was also a strong smell of blood. At the same time, a blood mist came out of Yun Feng's 7 orifices. His physical condition plummeted. However, Yun Feng's footsteps did not stop, but moved forward quickly, taking 5 steps in quick succession. The final moment has come. Yun Feng knows that if he can't do it in one fell swoop, then he will never have the chance to climb here again. The sword energy field and the killing god field he released are also gathering at a very fast speed. The energy is no longer enough to continue to support large-scale release, and the energy consumption brought by those fairy bends is also rising sharply. Even Yun Feng himself doesn't know how long he can hold on. Ning Rong at the foot of the mountain spurted out a mouthful of blood, which fell on her 9 treasures glazed tower. In an instant, the original 4 amplification lights suddenly increased. She spurted out a mouthful of her own heart blood, which, under the effect of the heart blood, can increase her amplification by another 10%. But it also hurt her own vitality. But at this time, Ning Rong could no longer care about anything else. With each step forward with heavy footsteps, the entire Poseidon mountain seemed to tremble. 306, 307, 321, 322, 323. Only the last 10 steps were left to the goal. Chapter 491. Come. This power to change the world. The scenery in front of Yun Feng had become blurred, and the Blue-Silver Domain and the Killing God Domain had returned to the 1-meter diameter range around his body. The 10 steps in front of him seemed to have become an insurmountable chasm. His body was so heavy, and in a solidified pressure, Yun Feng's breathing had become extremely difficult. Blood continued to seep out from the surface of his skin, turning into red solids in the air, and then breaking into powder and flying. After climbing here, Yun Feng's physical condition had become extremely poor. Facing the last 10 steps, his raised left leg solidified in midair, and he could not land on the stone steps in front of him. At this time, warm energy came from Yun Feng's body. What is this? The girls also noticed the energy in Yun Feng's body, and looked at Gu Duoina in unison. Gu Duoina just smiled faintly and didn't say anything, but the expectation in her eyes became brighter and brighter. Go ahead, take my expectations, take the expectations of our tribe and go up. The energy in Yun Feng's body is the original power of Gu Duoina. The state returned again, and Yun Feng's body felt full of power at this time. Yun Feng did not dare to hesitate and swallowed all the fairy beans in his mouth. The huge life energy continued to repair Yun Feng's body. Under the impact of this life energy, Yun Feng raised his head, and his eyes were full of determination. 1 step, 2 steps, 8 steps, 9 steps. Only the last step is left, and the last step is to directly reach the top of the 333 steps. The pressure of the light of the sea god was released at this moment, as if to completely suppress Yun Feng. At this time, all of Yun Feng's bones made a sound of explosion. At this time, Yun Feng suddenly had a smile on his lips. The blue-silver domain was completely converged, and the killing god domain broke out. Yun Feng's whole body was covered with a layer of white, a lifeless white, with only endless killing intent and murderous intent, just like the white world in front of him, bringing a terrifying coldness. The white surrounding suddenly moved. It spun at an unparalleled speed, and all the white light merged into the rotation like a sharp blade. The piercing scream was as terrifying as coming from hell, and the infinite murderous ore emerged with the terrifying rotating white light, as if it was going to cut everything around. The original terrifying pressure of the sea god's light suddenly disappeared. The pressure of the sea god's light seemed to be completely cut off at this moment, and what was cut off was only the part that invaded the white light. The most peculiar thing was that the rotating white light did not react to the attack of the sea god's light. Or rather, the sea god's light could not react. The white light was undoubtedly Yun Feng's killing god domain. He had been forbearing until the last moment, and Yun Feng used its true power. It's not that it hadn't been used before, but it was just that this was the last killing move Yun Feng prepared. But this evolved killing god domain required extremely terrifying soul power to be used. After it had been horribly consumed, Yun Feng could only hold on for a very short time when using it. If it is used in advance, it will only be a temporary solution. That white world is the evolved skill of the god of killing domain, Shurahel. As the god of killing domain, Shurahel is only good at one ability, that is, destruction. Destroy everything in the domain. The murderous ore will become substantial on Shurahel and become a terrifying attack. Even the huge power of the sea god's light will be cut and shattered in the suddenly unfolding Shurahel. The rapidly rotating, terrifying white light full of sharp roars is the skill produced by the evolution of Shurahel, the Shura rotating circle killing formation, the pinnacle of killing. Yun Feng stepped onto the last step with difficulty, but when his footsteps were suspended in the air, he couldn't put his feet down. Yun Feng could even feel the malice of the sea god's light towards him. This is definitely not the strength of the original test. Thinking of this, Yun Feng raised his head and looked at the sky. His eyes were bloodshot, and then under the gaze of the women below, he saw the blue-silver emperor directly emerging from Yun Feng's body. Come on, this power that changes the world. As soon as the voice fell, the entire sea god island turned from sunny to cloudy, and ice crystals began to fall from the sky, and the blue color blocked the sun. However, in a moment, under the injection of Yun Feng's soul power, the entire sea god island seemed to have turned into a blue world. The sea was directly frozen, and the lush trees around were directly frozen and withered at this moment. It seemed that all the women saw a blue-silver emperor appear on Yun Feng's body, which directly cut off the sea god's light that blocked Yun Feng's way one by one, and the overwhelming soul power completely exploded. Even Gu Duoina, who was below, felt a little danger, even though this power was not coming towards her. Seeing this, Gu Duoina looked at the women around her and did not hesitate to unfold her own power to wrap the women up, so that they would not be harmed by the aftermath of the Yayin power. Otherwise, when Yun Feng provided the test, I am afraid that everyone below would be frostbitten, and it would be irreversible. The sea god's light completely disappeared under this huge soul power. Yun Feng's kick landed directly. The white-haired woman in tight clothes seemed to be disturbed by something. After looking at Yun Feng, she disappeared into the sky. At the same time, 7 clearly visible golden lights gathered in the air, completely illuminating the night sky, just like daylight. They gathered above everyone's heads, and suddenly, they condensed into a stream and fell, covering Yun Feng's body. In the golden light, Yun Feng's body slowly stood up, his eyes closed, and the golden trident on his forehead burst into a brilliant light. The golden light spread from Yun Feng's forehead like a thread and flowed to his whole body. Wherever he passed, Yun Feng's skin seemed to tremble. The horrible wound on his back healed rapidly at a speed visible to the naked eye. A golden light curtain shattered in front of Yun Feng, turning into dots of golden light and the light flowing down from the golden trident, which simultaneously poured into Yun Feng's body. A deep and majestic voice sounded in his mind, crossing, double, Sigurd's light. Test passed. First test over. Sigurd's affinity increased by 5%, currently 5% overall. Douluo also noticed at this time that a strange blue light flashed between Yun Feng's eyebrows. The tingling sensation that spread throughout his body made Yun Feng almost groan. For him, this feeling was not wonderful. Chapter 492. This test is so simple, but the golden light that merged into his body brought him strength, as if it awakened all the skills in his body, and everything that was damaged quickly recovered. The broken 6 senses returned, and everything around him became clear. The golden light on Yun Feng's body lasted for half an hour. When the sky turned dark again, all the wounds on his body had disappeared, and even his soul power had returned to its peak state. The light of the golden trident on his forehead disappeared, and it turned into a branded form again. Poseidon had come to them at some point, and seeing Yun Feng wake up from his joy, he smiled and said, "Congratulations on passing the first test. However, more difficult tests are still to come. Whether it is a black level or a top level test, always remember the importance of the team. The second test will start at any time, and the time limit is still 1 year." After listening to Poseidon's words, Yun Feng hugged the 2 sisters Zhuzuqing and Zhuxiayun, and sat on the ground with a very satisfied image, with a soft pillow on his head, very comfortable. Although his body has recovered, his tense spirit relaxed with the passing of the first test. The almost sleepless training over the past year has made his strength grow rapidly, but it has also kept his spirit in a highly tense state. If he doesn't relax now, his heart will probably be depressed. Feeling this softness, Yun Feng said directly, "Senior, can we enter the Sea God Temple to have a look?" Bosexi glanced at him. "It's not the time yet. There will be a chance for you to worship Lord Sea God. If you must enter the Sea God Temple now, it's not completely impossible. As long as you can defeat me. Well, I can also tell you that if you can defeat me, except for Yun Feng's Sea God 9 tests, which can only be considered as completing the first 6 tests, the tests of others can be considered completed at once. I don't mind you choosing to try. I will fight with all my strength, but I will not show mercy." I don't know why, listening to the temptation in her words, Yun Feng's heart is actually a little eager to try. With Douluo here, let alone one Bosexi, even if there are another 100, what can it do? Besides, Yun Feng is not without the strength to fight. Just the shadow of the blue-silver grass can knock down the light of the sea god at once. It is not necessarily impossible to fight. However, Yun Feng deeply remembered that he was still fleecing the wool, so it was impossible for him to leave so easily. As for the other women, they thought that Sister Douluo could not make a move, because she had a special identity. As for her husband, it was not that he did not believe him, but he was uncertain. What about himself? Defeating Poseidon? Although their strength has increased rapidly in the past year, they will never be arrogant enough to think that they can defeat the top existence among the title Buo. That is a peerless strong man of level 99. 3 hours later, when the sky gradually brightened and a layer of fish belly white gradually appeared in the east in the distance, The marks on the foreheads of the women and young Feng all lit up at the same time. The sky was covered with dark clouds, and on the Poseidon mountain, there was a strong momentum of a storm. On the mountain that had become dark again, the light of the sea god covering the surface of the mountain became particularly obvious. But in the ring sea outside the mountain, a violent agitation began. The waves surged, and layers of strange energy fluctuated violently in the ring sea. And in the distant sky, the golden light cut through the sky and gathered again. This time, they gathered right above the sea god temple. The golden light gathered for a short time, which could be said to be a flash. But when the golden light dissipated, the ring sea in the eyes of Yun Feng and others was covered with a layer of golden light curtain. This layer of light curtain was only about 10 meters above the sea surface. Just like when they first arrived at the seahorse holy pillar, it seemed to block the impulse of the waves. The golden light spread all the way to the shore of the outer circle of the ring sea. At the same time, a new layer of light curtain appeared in the minds of Yun Feng and others. Their second test has officially begun. When the ring sea was booming, the figure of Poseidon Buobo-sexy had disappeared. Except for Yun Feng and Guduina, none of the women noticed how she left. Huliina said in a deep voice, "The second test, breakthrough, circular blockade. Under the premise of testing a sea soul beast, break through the blockade of the circular sea and reach the other side." The girls looked at each other and nodded. Obviously, they received the same test. Needless to say, Douluo, Huliina and Ning Rongarong's tests were not much different, but because they were top-level tests, the difficulty would be increased. Yun Feng had a slightly relaxed smile on his face, looking at the eyes of everyone, and said, "My test is the same as yours, but there is an additional restriction. No soul ring skills can be used." The girls frowned almost at the same time. Yun Feng cannot use soul skills, which means that his strength will be greatly restricted. The most important thing is that his two major domains will not be amplified by the martial soul true body. The martial soul true body is Yun Feng's seventh soul skill, and naturally it is also within the limit. Although the domain can still be used, without the amplification of the martial soul true body, the domain cannot play a real effect. Of course, they don't think that crossing the circular sea in front of them will be as simple as landing at the seahorse holy pillar. Needless to say, what awaits them in the ring-shaped sea is not only the raging waves, but also the unknown number of powerful soul beasts. Many of them cannot swim, and the golden light curtain restricts flying. How difficult this test is can only be truly experienced after going deep into the ring-shaped sea. This test is so simple, however. Ning Rongarong leaned on the stone steps without any nervousness, and the girls couldn't help but look at her, as if asking Ning Rongarong why she said that. Seeing the puzzled eyes of the girls, Ning Rongarong smiled and said directly, "Of course it's simple. Have you forgotten how we landed on the Sea God Island? My husband still has the vast sea universe cover. That's not a soul skill. We can just sneak across the sea invisibly. What's the difficulty?" After hearing Ning Rongarong's words, the girls' eyes lit up. Yes, how could I forget the vast sea universe cover? However, they were soon disappointed because Yun Feng's expression did not laugh because of Ning Rongarong's words. Sure enough, Yun Feng immediately hit everyone on the head and said helplessly, "I just tried it." The vast sea universe cover seems to be restricted by a special energy and cannot be summoned. It seems that this test can only rely on our own strength. I hope the soul beasts in this ring-shaped sea are not too terrifying. Otherwise we can only kill them and make soup. Zhu Xiaoyun also said at this time, "It's hard to say. Our mission goal is to break through the blockade of the ring-shaped sea. Reaching the other side will pass the test." It seems that this test is not difficult. The water surface is only a few hundred meters away. With our strength, we don't need to hunt soul beasts, so the pass rate is very high. And there are only two forces in this ring-shaped sea that can stop us. One comes from the sea, and the other is naturally the soul beast. There is no need to hunt, just dodge. In this case, the soul beast that blocks us will be strong. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel. Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 493, The Second Level. Huo Wu also nodded and said, "And we have another problem. The Ring Sea has now blocked our way out, and naturally blocked the way in. From today on, we will no longer have food supplies, and we may not be able to hunt creatures in the Ring Sea to replenish them." Yun Feng didn't care about this. He just blinked at the girls, then directly opened a gap in space, walked in, and came out again less than a minute later. When he came out again, Yun Feng brought a lot of food. Dao Wu was a little eager to try and said, "Why don't I go and try first to see how strong the soul beasts in this ring-shaped sea are?" Zhu Ziyan hurriedly stopped her and said, "Dao Wu, no. The situation is unclear now. We can't act rashly. After all, there is still a year, and we don't need to worry about food. With this layer of guarantee, it's not too late for us to slowly try to pass the second test. But we can let Rong help us to try slowly. After all, Rong's seventh soul skill is the 9 treasures true body. All soul skills have an amplification degree of 80%. In the 9 treasures true body state, the soul power consumption of all amplification skills is halved, and in the 9 treasures true body state, it will make her distraction control more comfortable. This is our confidence." After hearing this, Ning Rong smiled bitterly and said directly, "The top second test, breakthrough, ring blockade. The 7th soul skill is sealed, you see." As she spoke, she released her 9 treasures glazed tower. As the dazzling and crystal pagoda appeared on the palm of her hand, everyone immediately saw the difference. Among the 7 soul rings hovering on the pagoda, the last one, which should be black, is gray. After understanding the situation, Yun Feng also laughed and said directly, "My situation is the same as Rong, but all the soul rings are sealed." "Hey, Rong, why did your second soul ring turn purple?" Huliana was about to talk about her 7th soul skill, but the color of Ning Rong's soul ring made her feel like she had discovered a new world. In fact, Ning Rong had been like this before when she assisted Yun Feng to pass the assessment. It's just that at that time everyone's attention was on Yun Feng, and they didn't pay attention to these things at all. No one would have thought that Ning Rong's second soul ring would change, so it was not noticed until now. Ning Rong giggled and said, "After passing the first test, in addition to increasing my soul power by 1 level, my 6 soul rings also increased my cultivation by 500 years. The second soul ring is originally for soul beasts of about 500 years. After increasing it by 500 years, it becomes a 1,000-year soul ring. So that's it." Zhenzu couldn't help but envy and said, "It's true that the more difficult the test is, the more benefits you get." "Husband, what about you? You are the 9th test of the sea god, and the first test is so difficult. You must be rewarded with 2 levels of soul power, otherwise it's unreasonable." Yun Feng smiled and shook his head and said, "There is no soul power reward, only a sea god affinity, 5%, and there is only this 5% in total, which is quite useless." Sea god affinity? Hearing these 5 words, the girls were also a little confused. After Yun Feng smiled indifferently, he blinked at everyone without explaining anything. The girls immediately understood what Yun Feng meant and decisively stopped talking. "Actually, it doesn't matter what the reward is. After coming here, our strength has made a qualitative leap. This is already the best reward, isn't it?" "That's right. I came here with the mentality of getting the most. How can I get as much as I can? How can I complain about it being too little?" After that, I asked Huliana and Zhao Wu. After learning that they both blocked their 7th soul skills, their second soul rings also changed and turned purple. Although there was nothing surprising, their strength had greatly increased. Yun Feng looked at his wives and said, "Now that we have passed the first test, no matter how difficult the second test is, we should take a good rest now. Everyone has worked too hard this year. Let's take a 3-day rest to adjust our physical condition, and then start practicing. In the future, our main practice direction will be transformed from soul power to skill application and coordination. After all, everyone's soul power has increased significantly, and there are some more powerful soul skills. Everyone has seen the difficulty of the first test. The second test will definitely not be easier than the first. We must not only master our own abilities, but also master each other's abilities. Only by making the cooperation as perfect as possible can we be more confident of passing the second test. Zhu Xian nodded and said, I have no objection, let's do it this way. I can finally relax. Haha, take a rest. Come on, Zuking, let's find a place to sleep for a while. Just after Zhu Xian finished speaking, Yun Feng took out an extremely large bed from his ring, and then released a soul power barrier to wrap the women. He smiled and said to Zhu Xian, what's wrong? Do we have to rest separately? After saying this, Yun Feng didn't care about anything else, and directly swept all the women over with his soul power. Poseidon in the sea god temple was already stunned. What was he doing? Curious, Poseidon used his mental power to check, but didn't find anything wrong. Curious, Poseidon came directly to the outside of the soul power cover, close to the soul power cover, and then vaguely saw the situation inside. But after seeing it, Poseidon's pretty face was covered with a layer of blush. After a dark sound, it turned directly into a stream of light and disappeared on the spot. For the next 3 days, Yun Feng and others did not practice again, but were intoxicated in this bliss. The previous practice was almost a collapse of the spiritual world of practice. 3 days of complete relaxation was very necessary for them, but without the pressure of the light of the sea god, the speed of practice was of course greatly reduced, not to mention that they have now reached a very strong strength. Even every level up becomes extremely difficult. Especially Yun Feng, who has reached level 76, clearly felt that although his soul power was improving rapidly during the practice, it was still a long way from the next level. He didn't know when he could reach level 77. There was no way. The quality of his soul power was too high. Time passed day by day. Although the outside world was full of crises on the Ring Sea, everyone was not affected at all. They spent every day in various practices. This trip to Poseidon Island was a rare practice trip for Yun Feng and others. The girls gathered together to learn from each other and promote each other, which was faster than their own progress in practice. In this way, about half a month later, Zizhenzu said directly, "Husband, can we try the second level now?" Chapter 494 Piercing. Yun Feng nodded and said, "We can start trying. Before we make a full-scale breakthrough, we must first figure out what kind of sea soul beasts in the Ring Sea are likely to threaten us, and what level they are." When Zhu Xian heard her husband say this, she couldn't help but feel a little worried. She prayed secretly, hoping that her judgment would not come true. Otherwise, this not very wide Ring Sea in front of her would really be an insurmountable gap. Zizhenzu smiled and said, "Then you arrange it. We will all listen to you." Yun Feng's authority among the women is not just about strength. His wisdom, perseverance, and comprehensive abilities in all aspects are deeply admired by the women. Even Gu Dubuina, Bibidong, Liu Ralong, Tang Yue, such arrogant people, would never compete with him for leadership when he is around. I have made a plan. I am going to walk around this ring-shaped sea. You guys watch carefully and see what kind of monsters are in the sea. Nair, remember to come to pick me up at any time. Rong, you will increase my power. Gu Dubuina and Ning Rong both nodded, agreeing with Yun Feng's words. Zhu Xian could only go forward and tidy up Yun Feng's sleeves. "Then let's start. Let's see what is blocking us from leaving the Sea God Mountain in this second level." Yun Feng nodded, tapped the ground with his toes, and his body had already jumped out. With the increase of soul power, the whole person seemed to have a series of faint after images behind him. The most peculiar thing was that the route he was walking seemed to be straight, but it gave people an elusive feeling. After a few flashes, Yun Feng had already arrived at the edge of the ring-shaped sea. The blue-silver domain suddenly released, enhancing his senses. At the same time, he jumped up and rushed straight into the ring-shaped sea. The moment his body jumped out, his soul power surged. Driven by the strong soul power, his body jumped out like a cannonball and shot straight into the sea. Boom! Just when Yun Feng's body had just jumped out of the land for less than 5 meters, the entire ring-shaped sea suddenly boiled, and the originally turbulent waves almost burst up in an instant, heavily bombarding the golden light barrier 10 meters above the sea level. Strangely, the rising seawater did not splash out of the ring-shaped sea at all, neither hitting the ground outside the ring-shaped sea nor rushing to the sea god mountain. Yun Feng's body was completely shrouded in the seawater at this moment. What the women could see was a strange deep blue water world. The dazzling light shot out from the pagoda in Ning Rong-Arong's hand. Although she could not use her seventh soul skill, the nine treasures' true body, her soul power increased greatly, and the speed of the increase was much faster than before. A total of 6 rays of light fell on Yun Feng at almost the same time, and they were strength, agility, soul power, defense, attack, and attributes. The 6 major increases came together, penetrated into the seawater without reservation, and fell on Yun Feng. When the 6 strange lights entered the seawater, Ning Rong-Arong's face suddenly changed, and she said in a deep voice, "The amplification of my 9 treasure-glazed tower is affected by the unknown energy in the seawater, and the amplification effect is weakened by 30%. The actual amplification brought to my husband is less than 60%. You know, her current amplification should have reached 80%. After weakening by 30%, the actual amplification is only more than 50%. The blue-silver field light radiating from Yun Feng illuminates the area around his body. In addition to conducting spiritual detection, it is also for the wives to see the situation in the water from the sea god mountain. Yun Feng was instantly immersed in the sea water, and he immediately found the problem. Immersed in the sea water, it seemed that there was a special energy in the sea water, which delayed his figure and accelerated the consumption of his soul power. Even the range of the blue-silver field detection was greatly reduced by the resistance of the sea water. Undercurrents continued to hit Yun Feng's body, and coupled with the strong buoyancy in the sea water, his body was unstable. Although Yun Feng had strong control, he still found it difficult to adapt to the sudden immersion in the water. This was not the first time that Yun Feng had entered the water, but he clearly felt that the water in this ring-shaped sea was different. In addition to the restricted energy, the resistance in the seawater was also surprisingly large. Most importantly, Yun Feng did not know how to move forward in the water. Although the huge soul power could propel his body, he still needed to adapt to the resistance in the water in order to move smoothly. However, before Yun Feng began to adapt, he was already in danger. The arrow-shaped fish that had appeared when they first climbed the sea god mountain appeared without warning in all directions around Yun Feng's body. Their speed in the water was extremely fast, even faster than the speed of jumping out of the water and moving in the air. Almost in just a moment, a circle of more than 100 arrow-shaped fish had surrounded Yun Feng's body, and the blue-purple light surrounded their bodies. The rich soul power fluctuations formed a large net in the seawater, blocking all of Yun Feng's ways forward and backward. Yun Feng had faced countless crises, and faced this sudden encirclement without panic. He had faced more dangerous situations than this. Although he was extremely uncomfortable with the underwater environment, he also made the most correct response in the shortest time. Holding his breath in the water was nothing for him who had broken through the 70th level. His soul power was running rapidly in the unobstructed meridians, forming a wonderful internal breathing state. In this state, Yun Feng could at least hold on for more than half an hour without feeling suffocated. However, at this moment, Yun Feng also realized the importance of the vast sea universe cover to him. If he had the vast sea universe cover at this time, he would not have to be so passive. Not only can he sink underwater quickly without being affected by the turbulent water flow, but he also does not need to use internal breathing to resist the feeling of suffocation. However, Yun Feng was not without any way to solve this problem. He still had soul bones, the soul bones of the Ice and Fire Dragon King, which were not ordinary goods. In addition to the soul power he had originally cultivated, he had no ordinary means to deal with the enemy. A blue light flashed in his hand, and the blue-silver emperor had appeared in Yun Feng's hand. The evolved blue-silver emperor, whose mass had long exceeded 1,000 pounds, suddenly appeared in Yun Feng's grasp, and immediately drove his body to sink rapidly into the sea. When Yun Feng did not make any moves, the arrow-shaped fish sea soul beasts just surrounded him. When he moved, the arrow-shaped fish also moved and charged at him. For a moment, Hundreds of arrow-shaped fish sea soul beasts shot at Yun Feng like countless sharp arrows with soul power attached. Judging from their posture, they would not stop until they pierced Yun Feng's body. Chapter 495 I won't play with you anymore. The women on the shore could clearly see that when these arrow-shaped fish launched their charge, their entire bodies turned into the same blue-purple color that had previously permeated their bodies, like streams of light, extremely dazzling. Yun Feng, who was in the ring-shaped sea, had no chance of avoiding so many arrow-shaped fish in this unprotected seawater. The resistance of the seawater could not bring out his ghost shadow advantage at all. Zi Zhenzu and the others, who had no idea of Yun Feng's strength, could not help but tighten their hearts. Of course, they did not think that these arrow-shaped fish could hurt their husband. After breaking through to the Soul Saint realm, Yun Feng's strength could only be described as terrifying. These arrow-shaped fish looked like only thousand-year soul beasts. Although there were many of them, they were not enough to threaten Yun Feng's life. But the important thing was that there was an important restriction in their second test, which was that during the test, they were not allowed to hurt any sea soul beast in the ring-shaped sea. Even Yun Feng, who was holding the Blue Silver Emperor, could not kill them. Judging from the speed of these arrow-shaped fish's charge, even if Yun Feng did not launch an attack, as long as he allowed them to hit him, the result would be a tragedy. The attacks of these arrow-shaped fish were clearly like suicide attacks. What would Yun Feng do? What could he do? Yun Feng quickly gave the answer. The Blue Silver Emperor in his hand moved as light as nothing, swinging diagonally from the lower left to the upper right. At the same time, his body rotated in the seawater, and even the seawater full of resistance could not affect his speed at this time. The majestic vitality burst out directly from the body of the Blue Silver Emperor. Although the Blue Silver Emperor did not have any soul rings attached, it fully demonstrated the terrifying explosive power of a top-level weapon spirit at this time. Wherever the blue light reached, the seawater surged violently. The people who had already run to the shore clearly saw that the seawater around Yun Feng's body was violently twisted, and all the arrow-shaped fish that rushed around his body were directly dispersed by a hurricane formed by the vitality in the water, and scattered in all directions. They charged fast, and were swept away even faster. It was like the countless blue-purple lights shot from Yun Feng's body quickly scattered. Yun Feng's body was no longer sinking, but was suspended in the water. It was obvious that he controlled the weight of the Blue Silver Emperor with his soul power. However, the attack of the arrow-shaped fish sea soul beast had just begun. After being suddenly dispersed, they quickly adjusted their bodies in the ring-shaped sea. They charged towards Yun Feng again, but this time they did not attack at the same time. More than 100 arrow-shaped fish were very intelligent and divided into 10 groups, launching a wave-like attack on Yun Feng with almost no gaps. More than 10 sea soul beasts attacked in each group. After the first group was blown away by the vitality of the Blue Silver Emperor, the second group immediately pounced on it. They seemed to have recognized that Yun Feng did not want to hurt them, and the waves of attacks were more fierce and faster than the last. The stirred seawater continued to show distorted halos. Facing the arrow-shaped fish sea soul beasts changed attack, Yun Feng's face was as calm as an ancient well, and the Blue Silver Emperor flew up and down in his left hand. Each time he lifted up these arrow-shaped fish, he used just the right amount of force, which would not allow them to rush in front of him, and he could use the undercurrent brought by the Blue Silver Emperor to lift them away without hurting them. As time went on, Yun Feng's body was rapidly adapting to the pressure, resistance, and strange restrictive energy of the seawater. He was already a little impatient with the constant impact of the arrow-shaped fish. After trying for a period of time, although he still didn't know how much these arrow-shaped fish could withstand, he had his own way. The Blue Silver Emperor continued to swing, but the additional soul power began to rise. The distance that the arrow-shaped fish sea soul beasts were shaken away after each charge was getting farther and farther. At the same time, their originally swift speed also began to slow down with Yun Feng's strength. At this time, Yun Feng had the amplification of Ning Rong Arong's 6 major auxiliary powers, and his soul power was no less than that of a top soul fighter. His 8 meridians were unobstructed, making his recovery speed incredibly fast. The threat brought to him by these arrow-shaped fish was far from enough. What really consumed his soul power was this suffocating sea. Although internal breathing can make him last longer, it will also increase his soul power consumption as time goes by. He snorted in his heart and said secretly, "I won't play with you anymore." A cold light flashed in his eyes, and his soul power was strengthened again. At the same time, when the blue-silver emperor was swinging, it produced a strange melody of vibration. Even the women on the shore could clearly see that every time Yun Feng swung, the blue-silver emperor itself would ripple a circle of pure white light. When the arrow-shaped fish sea soul beast hit his body again, as soon as it came into contact with a white light, it bounced up quickly like being electrocuted, and lost its ability to move in trembling and spasms. It was pierced by the vitality and fainted directly. Yun Feng was performing the blue-silver domain at this time. However, Yun Feng also carefully explored the tolerance of the arrow-shaped fish sea soul beast, and then relied on his own understanding of himself to easily resolve this round of attacks. Nearly half of the hundreds of arrow-shaped fish were stunned by him one after another. The remaining ones dared not launch a charge anymore. They only dared to bluff on the periphery, constantly shuttling and interfering in the sea water around Yun Feng's body. Yun Feng was not very good at water. Of course, he still knew the basics, but it was indeed a bit difficult to fight in the water. But he had his own way, which was very simple, that is, to control his balance in the water with his soul power. After mastering the balance, he used his soul power to push his body forward in the water. Although this would consume a lot of his soul power and the speed of travel would not be fast, it was the only way he could think of at present. After repelling the arrow-shaped fish, Yun Feng stabilized his body and began to go deeper. At this time, he had only entered the ring-shaped sea for more than 20 meters, and was still far away from the other side. At this moment, while getting familiar with the way to move forward in the sea, he observed the surroundings. The two sides of the ring-shaped sea were only more than 200 meters apart. Yun Feng had entered 1/10 of it at this time, and was still 180 meters away from the other side. 180 meters, on land, it would only take him a moment, although he defeated the arrowfish. The remaining 180 meters were obviously not so easy to pass. But at this moment, his face had become a little ugly. He finally understood where the inexplicable energy in the seawater restricted him. If it was on land, Yun Feng's speed in such a short distance could almost be said to be teleportation, and he could reach the other side quickly within 100 meters. The ring sea is only 200 meters wide. Under normal circumstances, he only needs to use all his strength for a few seconds to reach the other side. Since coming here, the restricted energy in the seawater is probably aimed at skills such as speed increase, and even his full effort to use soul power to increase speed is not possible. Chapter 496, Sparring. Don't give any chance to the people on your side who are being tested to take advantage. Just after Yun Feng tested his speed, he was annoyed, and suddenly he felt a strange wave coming around him. It was a kind of energy fluctuation, but it was also like a sound fluctuation. Where did the sound come from in the seawater? The next moment, Yun Feng immediately realized that he was in trouble, because, although the arrow-shaped fish that originally surrounded his body did not dare to attack again, the arrow-shaped fish sea soul beasts that had been harassing him had now fled in all directions. These thousand-year soul beasts were very loyal and even took away their companions who were stunned. For a while, the sea area around Yun Feng's body suddenly became quiet. The suffocating pressure spread throughout Yun Feng's body at this moment. But Yun Feng was not affected much. After all, he had seen the most severe pressure. A huge shadow came from a distance, and before Yun Feng could see its appearance clearly, an irresistible force came from the seawater. Yun Feng only had time to use the blue-silver emperor to protect his chest. Before he could make the next move, he was already blown away by the surging undercurrent. With a puff, Yun Feng broke out of the water and rushed straight to the sea god mountain. Although the light of the sea god would no longer bring pressure to those who passed the first test, the mission of protecting the sea god mountain had not disappeared. Yun Feng felt his whole body soften, as if he was trapped in a pile of cotton. The next moment, he seemed to be embedded in the light of the sea god, sliding down slowly along the mountain. It was not until this moment that Yun Feng clearly felt his blood and chi suddenly surging. and his whole body felt indescribably uncomfortable, as if every meridian was injured. The injury was not serious. Yun Feng felt that he was like the arrow-shaped fish before. He shook them away, and now he was also shaken away by the sudden huge force. His whole body was numb, and his soul power was running rapidly to heal the wound. This feeling of powerlessness gradually disappeared. Failure is not terrible. Yun Feng never thought that he could pass the test directly. He was just testing it this time. But what made him depressed was that this restriction seemed to be increased for him, which made him very annoyed. At the moment of the undercurrent, his scattered blue-silver domain fell into temporary disorder. This place was suppressing his strength in an all-round way. "Husband, are you okay?" The women who rushed over at the first time pulled Yun Feng up from the ground. "I'm fine. What was it just now? Did you see it clearly?" Yun Feng asked directly to the women. Hearing his question, the faces of the women became ugly, and Zhu Xian's expression was even more solemn. Huo Wu said angrily, "Although we guessed that this assessment would be perverted, we did not expect it to be perverted to this extent. We have observed it carefully. Apart from the arrow-shaped fish that started to attack you, only another kind of sea soul beast appeared, which was the sea soul beast that attacked you in the end. There was only one of this kind of sea soul beast. It was a white shark, about 25 meters long, but its huge size did not affect its flexibility at all. It was incredibly fast, from appearance to disappearance. It only took a few blinks of an eye. We almost just turned a thought, and you were bombarded out by the seawater driven by the blue light released from its body, and then it turned and left." Purple Pearl took a breath of cold air. "It should be said that it is the demon soul great white shark. There are actually demon soul great white sharks in this circular sea." Then, under the gaze of the women, Zizhenzu slowly explained, "It's not just as simple as the demon soul great white shark. Do you remember what I said before? In the waters outside the Sea God Island, there has always been a 100,000-year-old demon soul great white shark guarding the sea area. It is about 20 meters long. The demon soul great white shark just now is definitely more than 20 meters long. Although my husband can't use soul skills now and is greatly restricted in the water, you were under Rong's full power enhancement just now. The fact that you were shaken out of the water without any resistance has clearly explained its identity." Dao Wu also asked directly, "Could it be that the one who attacked my husband just now was the king of the demon soul great white sharks, the 100,000-year-old demon soul great white shark guarding the Sea God Island? But how did it come to this circular sea?" After thinking about it, Zizhenzu said directly, "There are several inland seas in Poseidon Island. These inland seas are not fresh water without salt. It is conceivable that these seawater should also come from the sea outside. Therefore, there may be a passage connecting these inland seas with the outer sea under Poseidon Island. If so, it is not difficult to explain why the demon soul great white shark king appeared here. It must be our assessment that attracted it to this circular sea to prevent us from completing the task. But looking at the ability it used when attacking my husband just now, it seems that it has no intention of hurting us, but just preventing us from crossing the sea." Yun Feng also nodded at this time. He also knew the identity of this soul beast. "Isn't it Xiaobai? When the time comes, Guiduina will come forward to see if she can rebel. It seems that this is the case. Only this explanation is reasonable. 100,000-year soul beast. This Poseidon really thinks highly of us." In the second assessment, let us face the test of 100,000-year soul beast. The women smiled bitterly at each other, and their faces became very ugly. Juzukin said, "I hope that the demon soul great white shark will not really launch a fatal attack on us. Otherwise, there is no possibility for us to escape unscathed when passing through this circular sea." Yun Feng had a flash of inspiration in his mind, and then he just smiled and winked at the girls. "Yes, although the test we accepted was difficult, it is impossible for us to face 100,000-year soul beast in the second test. Although this test is difficult, but there should still be some restrictions. The condition for us to pass the test is only to break through the blockade of the Ring Sea and reach the other side, not to defeat the 100,000-year magic soul great white shark. Since it didn't kill me just now and had no intention of killing me, then we can temporarily predict that the task of this 100,000-year magic soul great white shark is only to block rather than annihilate. In this way, our chances of passing the test are still quite large. Perhaps, this is also a good opportunity for us to enhance our actual combat capabilities. The women were stunned. Enhance actual combat capabilities? Husband, you don't want us to fight that magic soul great white shark, do you? Yun Feng chuckled and said, why not? Don't forget why we are here, facing a 100,000-year soul beast in the sea water with a lot of restrictions and where we can't breathe. The pressure on us can be imagined, and this 100,000-year soul beast won't really hurt us. Is there a better sparring partner than this? Not only can we practice our water skills, but our actual combat capabilities will also be greatly improved. This is also the best way for us to practice in the next 9 months. Of course, the premise is that we must be sure that the demon soul great white shark will not cause any substantial harm to us. Chapter 497, Humans and Soul Beasts. 5 minutes later. Boom, boom, 2 figures broke out of the boiling ring-shaped sea, hit the light of the sea god heavily and slowly slid down. Shui Douluo climbed up dizzy, pouted, tears in her eyes, and said aggrievedly, this great white shark king is really disrespectful. My little bones are about to fall apart. Shui Binger also said with a bitter face, you are not bad, my butt feels like it has been split in 2. However, now we can basically be sure that this demon soul great white shark king has no ill will towards us. The attack method it used is similar to the one used by my husband to stun the arrow-shaped fish sea soul beast, and it seems more like a prank. Looking at the embarrassed appearance of Shui Binger and Shui Douluo, the other girls have already laughed out loud. They are all the elites among the elites of the younger generation, and Shui Binger and Shui Douluo are the 2 stronger ones. It is not easy to see them being embarrassed by others, but the situation in front of them is helpless. This is the absolute gap in strength. You know, a 100,000-year soul beast is stronger than an ordinary tidal Douluo. Even an ordinary 100,000-year soul beast is about the same as a 95-level tidal Douluo, and this demon soul great white shark is no ordinary soul beast. It is different in the sea and in the forest. In the forest, there are various plants as cover, and some weak soul beasts can hide from the strong soul beasts, but there is no cover in the sea, unless some special soul beasts that live on the seabed can avoid attacks. Therefore, the law of the jungle of sea soul beasts is much more serious than that of land soul beasts. It is much more difficult to cultivate to the 100,000-year level in the sea than in the forest. This is why the deep-sea demon whale that Yun and others encountered before was so terrifying. Shui Binger and Shui Douluo relied on their own attributes to enter the sea. When they saw the huge white figure, all the surrounding seawater seemed to become part of the body of the demon soul great white shark king. Shui Binger and her sister were immersed in the sea water, which was equivalent to entering the domain of the demon soul great white shark king. They had not even put up any resistance before they were forced out of the ring sea by the dark energy in the sea water. The demon soul great white shark actually just moved its tail in the sea. And when it blasted them out of the ring sea, it seemed to grin in their direction, as if it was laughing at them. The 2 sisters were looking at each other and smiling bitterly, and they could not think of any way to break through the demon soul great white shark king. Suddenly, in the rising sea water, a huge white figure quickly came towards them. With its speed, it basically arrived near the shore in just a few blinks of an eye. The warning sign of danger suddenly struck Uzuking's heart, and she shouted, "Be careful!" The women had cooperated for many years, so their actions were naturally extremely tacit. Almost immediately, everyone released their martial arts spirits, and Yun Feng also became serious, staring straight at the distance. The white figure enlarged in the eyes of the crowd. Under the astonished gaze of the girls, the huge demon soul great white shark king actually jumped out of the seawater and soared into the air. The dazzling gray-blue light bloomed on its perfect streamlined body. Strangely, its body was shrinking rapidly in this light. Under the astonished gaze of the crowd, it soon transformed into a tall girl and appeared in front of Yun Feng and others. It seemed that her height was almost the same as Yun Feng. If it was an ordinary girl, it would be easy to look uncoordinated at such a height, but her figure looked so perfect. A white leather-like outfit outlined a perfect figure, and the beautiful curves made her look full of temptation. The gray-blue long hair was scattered behind her, and it actually fell directly to the ground like a woo when she spread her long hair. Her eyes were also gray-blue, and a faint gray-blue glow appeared in her fair skin. Her nose was high and her face had some sharp edges, but it did not look abrupt. Instead, it was very distinctive, giving people a moving exotic style. Looking at her, Yun Feng was stunned. Such a unique exotic beauty's appearance has an extremely terrifying killing power on men. However, the woman who was transformed by the demon soul Great White Shark King at this time was not here to surprise them. After she transformed into a human, she fell to the ground, staring at Zhao Wu with her eyes, and a strange gray-blue light kept flashing in her pupils. Yun Feng could clearly feel that a strange energy fluctuation was emerging from Zhao Wu, and the appearance of this energy fluctuation was obviously directly related to the Demon Soul Great White Shark King. The Demon Soul Great White Shark King's gaze shifted from Zhao Wu to Yun Feng, and a strong curiosity suddenly burst out in his gray-blue eyes. "Why is there your breath on her body? Are you together?" "Great, humans and soul beasts are together." Yun Feng looked at Zhao Bei in front of him with a confused face. Did he go ashore just to take a look at this? The other women also flashed doubts in their eyes, and they didn't understand why. However, Yun Feng nodded and said, "Yes, Zhao Wu and I are together." Just when the Demon Soul Great White Shark wanted to continue asking, unexpectedly, a situation occurred. The golden trident on Yun Feng's forehead suddenly burst into a dazzling brilliance. A huge trident phantom with complex patterns and extremely dazzling appeared behind Yun Feng, and the golden light rippled and turned into a circle of dazzling halo. In an instant, everyone present felt an indescribable majesty, and Yun Feng was the core of this majestic aura. The Demon Soul Great White Shark King, who had been curious before, suddenly became sluggish. The moment she stepped on the ground, she actually knelt down on the ground with a plop, and the curiosity in her eyes was completely replaced by a pious light. The scene in front of them was so shocking that everyone's breathing seemed to stop. As the person involved, Yun Feng had a helpless look on his face. He did not feel the majestic aura, but the pressure around his body suddenly disappeared, and the twisted and boiling air returned to normal. The golden light faded, and the phantom of the trident behind Yun Feng quietly disappeared, as if it had never appeared, and the trident mark on his forehead also returned to its original appearance. At this moment, even the ring-shaped sea had calmed down. It was not only the king of the Demon Soul Great White Shark who knelt on the ground. On the top of the sea god mountain, the sea god Buo Poseidon also knelt in the temple, with 2 lines of tears flowing down his face, and he murmured something. Chapter 498 Zibai. At this time, the Demon Soul Great White Shark King spoke. Her expression was extremely excited, and she bowed down to Yun Feng. "I was wrong, respected Lord Sea God. I should not have violated your will. Please forgive my blasphemy. I will never dare to do it again." Yun Feng's brain had become clear at this time. He clearly felt that the Demon Soul Great White Shark King was not bowing to him, but was worshipping the golden trident mark on his forehead. All this happened too abruptly, and Yun Feng could only say helplessly, "You are not wrong. You just simply asked some questions. It's okay." After saying those words, the Demon Soul Great White Shark King looked around, then looked at the sky, and found that there was nothing unusual, so he breathed a sigh of relief. The way she looked around was like a thief, and the women all felt like laughing. "Is this a 100,000-year-old soul beast? Why does it look like a little girl who has done something wrong?" Patting his chest and letting out a long breath, the Demon Soul Great White Shark King stood up from the ground, patted his full chest, and then said, "What kind of madness is this, Lord Poseidon? I'm scared to death." Yun Feng and others nodded deeply, as if they agreed with what the Demon Soul Great White Shark King said. The Demon Soul Great White Shark King, who got the same, suddenly felt that the people in front of him seemed to be pretty good. When he wanted to say something, he clearly saw the golden trident mark on Yun Feng's forehead flashing, and he was so scared that he quickly shut up, then thought of something and patted his towering chest. I'm sorry, Lord Poseidon, I didn't leak it on purpose, I was wrong." Seeing the trident mark on Yun Feng's forehead clearly showing a trend of increasing light, the Demon Soul Great White Shark King hurriedly said, "I was wrong, I apologize to you. You just pretend you didn't hear what I said. You must pretend you didn't hear it. Dead. How could I make such a low-level mistake? However, I will not relax in your second test. In order to compensate you, I can tell you that I will only block you from passing through the ring sea, but I will not really attack you. My strength in the sea is much stronger than on land. You should work hard on your own. I'm leaving. After saying that, he turned around and left in the direction of the ring sea. Wait a minute, Douluo shouted. The demon soul Great White Shark King was stunned for a moment. What for? Douluo said puzzledly. I have a question. You are still in the form of a 100,000-year-old demon beast, but why can you transform into a human? The demon soul Great White Shark King pointed to his body. It's very simple. Haven't you heard of mermaids? After our fish-like sea soul beasts have cultivated for 100,000 years, once they come to land, their strength will be weakened by 30%, but they will also become humans. Of course, there is a time limit. If they do not return to the water for more than an hour, their bodies will gradually weaken and even die. Among the 100,000-year soul beasts, we are also a special case. I don't have the courage to cultivate into a human form. What's more, I have to protect the Sea God Island. I'm leaving. Oh, by the way, I can tell you my name. My name is Xiaobai. The Sea God used to call me Xiaobai. After saying this, under the stunned gaze of everyone, Xiaobai, the king of the demon soul Great White Shark, had already turned over and jumped up. With a whoosh, he sank into the ring-shaped sea and turned into his original body. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared into the depths of the sea. Xiaobai, idiot Bai. This name is really appropriate. Feng couldn't help but whispered. After this, the girls also started laughing. Only a stream of water suddenly appeared in the ring sea, pouring directly towards Feng. But with Feng's reaction speed, he naturally dodged it easily. Feng laughed awkwardly and stopped talking. He knew that what he said seemed to be heard by Xiaobai. The girls stopped smiling at this time, and Zhu Xiaoyun said directly, "Husband, is there a possibility that because of your smile, the difficulty of our later tests has increased?" Feng smiled and said indifferently, "That would be better, and the training would be more thorough." The girls were helpless, but this seemed to be in line with Feng's character. "But, husband, what did that little idiot mean when he said that you were chosen by the sea god? Have you thought about it?" Feng smiled and said directly, "Isn't this obvious? Your husband is so handsome that even the gods are paying attention to me." The golden trident flashed a few times, as if it was touched by Feng's shamelessness. Seeing this, Feng coughed twice. Zhu Xiaoyun also changed the subject in a considerate way. "The real answer is uncertain now. But judging from the name of the test and what Xiaobai said today, I believe our test should be more difficult than the one we were supposed to take. As for why the unknown sea god did this, I can't guess, but he shouldn't have any bad intentions. Since he has no bad intentions, and accepting these tests will greatly help us improve our strength, we don't need to think too much now. It's enough to improve our own strength as much as possible. When we leave here, our goal should be to set it at level 80. And then we will return to the mainland." Zhu Xiaoyun's words were extremely beautiful. The golden light of the trident on Feng's forehead flashed several times. It seemed that he agreed with what Zhu Xiaoyun said. Seeing this, Zhu Zuqing said directly, "Then what should we do next?" Feng smiled and said without hesitation, "We have to keep going into the water and try to fight in the water. The resistance of the sea water itself is very large, and there is a strange energy in it, which is also a pressure on us. Moreover, we must keep trying to break through the blockade of the sea soul beasts led by the king of the demon soul Great White Shark, and fight with them. Our combat effectiveness in the sea will continue to improve." Even Xiaobai herself said that she will not really attack us. "In this case, don't you think she is our best sparring partner? Let's not think about how to pass the level first, but practice underwater fighting under her blockage. This is equivalent to us sparing the actual combative abilities similar to the field." Zhu Zuqing agreed with Feng's words and said directly, "That's right, if we can cooperate tacitly in the sea water, then when we fight on land, won't the speed of cooperation be faster and more impeccable?" "Husband, when do we start?" Huo Wu laughed and said directly, "Need I say more? Time is short and the mission is urgent. It's not easy to find a 100,000-year-old soul beast as a sparring partner. It won't be really attacked. Naturally, I have to recover my soul power and start right away. At this time, Douluo also said directly, Huo, if you want, my two younger brothers are still in the Xingdu Great Forest. Chapter 499. Otherwise, I would have spanked your butt into 8 pieces. Hehe. As soon as Douluo said this, Huo was stunned. The girls smiled at each other, and sat down cross-legged at the same time, and began to practice to restore the soul power they had consumed before. Because they had taken the fairy grass, they recovered faster. From this day on, the ring-shaped sea that had been silent for many years and had always protected the sea god mountain became lively. Every day, there were violent fluctuations like raging waves, and from time to time, groups of strong light burst out, and whirlpools continued to appear in the stirred sea water. There are many skills in water nature, but like practicing soul power, there is not much trickery. As the saying goes, practice makes perfect. Although most of Feng and others are landlubbers, they quickly adapt to it after being in the water every day, coupled with their own strong strength. Of course, with the guidance of Zizhenzu, Shui Binger and Shui Douluo, the girls are adapting quickly. The water nature is getting stronger almost every day. Although it can't be said that they can swim in the water like fish, at least their movements in the water will not be hindered too much. But what made others envious was that Xiaobai, the king of the demon soul great white shark, would not attack Xiao, and would even deliberately avoid Xiao when launching an attack. What Xiaobai said after the battle was not empty talk. Its strength could only be truly demonstrated in the sea. A 100,000-year-old sea soul beast in the sea was a terrifying existence. Feng was sure that even 4 or 5 titled Buo might not be able to beat her in the sea. Not enough. She did show mercy. Although everyone was often beaten and bruised, Xiaobai would only drive them out of the ring sea and stop attacking, and never really hurt them. Through continuous fighting in the sea, the women clearly felt that their opponents were not only the sea soul beasts, but also the entire ring sea. Under Xiaobai's control, every drop of sea water became their enemy, repelling them. Except for Xiao, Xiaobai's attack on Feng was relatively mild. Perhaps it was because of the trident or because of the halo on Feng, but she would never let them go. To her, she was the examiner of the second test. This power and responsibility was given by the sea god. Although she was so powerful, she would never dare to be partial. However, as the days passed, the women were almost ravaged by Xiaobai in the ring sea every day, and gradually developed some feelings for him. They admired Xiaobai's strength, and Xiaobai was also very curious about them. In her eyes, these land soul masters gradually showed their strength after gradually adapting to the fighting methods in the sea, although they were still far from her opponents. But if she wanted to defeat these people on land, she would inevitably pay a huge price, and it might even be her life. Of course, that was when Feng used the Blue-Silver Emperor Soul skill. As an examiner, she certainly knew what kind of restrictions Feng had, including the inability to use a skill including the 100,000-year soul skill. The two major domains could not exert their true power, and such restrictions were extremely severe. In a blink of an eye, 3 months had passed. It was exactly half a year from the start of the second test to now. Ah, Xiaobai, can't you be gentle? Girls should be gentle. Shui Douluo was sent out of the ring sea by an undercurrent and fell hard on the beach. The pain all over her body almost made her faint, and she couldn't help but complain loudly. However, following her, Shui Binger, Zizhenzu, Juzuking, Ningrong, Douluo, and other girls were also sent out of the ring sea one after another. No one was much better, and they were all in a mess. Xiaobai's shark head poked out of the ring sea and spoke directly to Shui Douluo in human language. Douluo, sister has been very gentle, otherwise, I would have beaten your butt into 8 pieces. Hehe. After saying that, she turned her body directly, flicked her tail, and threw all the sea water onto the shore, soaking the girls, and then disappeared in it. However, because of Xiaobai, the actual combat ability of the girls has improved by leaps and bounds. Although there is no assistance from the light of the sea god, although the girls are fighting hard every day, The speed of improving their soul power has obviously slowed down. Half a year has passed, and they still maintain their original level, just approaching the next level of breakthrough. It can be seen how difficult it is to practice after the soul power exceeds level 70. It is normal for soul masters above the soul saint level to upgrade one level every few years. They will have a faster improvement speed when facing such pressure battles every day. 5 months later, Yun Feng and others stood quietly in front of the ring-shaped sea at the foot of the Sea God Mountain. The boiling ring-shaped sea seemed to be calling them. Through the azure sea water, it can be clearly seen that in the sea water that is more than 200 meters wide, nearly 1,000 sea soul beasts, led by the huge demon soul great white shark King Xiaobai, are floating in the sea water, quietly watching them. Another year has passed, and even the youngest Zhuzukin has celebrated her 22nd birthday. It is true that in the second year, the soul power of Yun Feng and others has not increased as fast as in the first year. However, over the past year, their actual combat capabilities have been greatly tested in the ring-shaped sea. 3 days ago, they had their last seawater training. After that, the girls and Yun Feng rested for 3 days and specially informed Xiaobai that today was the time for them to attack the second test. Yun Feng's current strength has reached level 79. The girls have also improved by several levels. Moreover, according to the situation of the previous test, passing the second test should also be able to get a reward of 1 level of soul power improvement. For high-level soul masters, this reward is already very generous. Yun Feng looked around and said in a deep voice, "Everyone get ready." The martial spirits were released almost at the same time. Traveling more than 200 meters in the seawater was just a simple matter for Yuan and others with their current water ability. But the opponents they had to face were by no means simple. Although the ring-shaped sea did not look wide, it was precisely because of this narrow sea area that they had less room to maneuver. Facing hundreds of sea soul beasts of various levels, their way forward was almost completely blocked. The biggest problem that prevented them from completing the second test naturally came from Xiaobai, the king of the demon soul great white shark. If they could not pass Xiaobai's level, they would not be able to reach the other side. Although Xiaobai would not attack them with all her strength, she would definitely do her best to stop them from completing the assessment. With her in control, the sea soul beasts in the ring sea were like a piece of iron. In the previous 11 months of training, the women had never advanced more than 100 meters in the ring sea. In the ring sea, Xiaobai had already made preparations. She understood the indomitable aura emanating from Yun and others. Today's battle would never be as simple as before. These humans from the inland would really attack the second assessment that they were guarding. The 9 treasures glazed tower shone brightly, and the 3 amplification attributes of soul power amplification, attribute amplification, and defense amplification fell on everyone in front at the same time. It greatly increased the light on their bodies. Although the seawater and the ring sea was filled with a special magic, but when Huo Wu, who had transformed into a Hokage, rushed into it, the seawater around her body suddenly vaporized, and was dispersed to both sides by the huge energy that erupted from her body. Chapter 500, Light Wave of Despair. The location she chose was right below the restrictive light curtain, so when the seawater was pushed away, there would be no water pressure from above. She had temporarily revealed a waterless space, and her body moved forward rapidly, with the seawater vaporizing, forming a short passage behind her. Yun Feng and the others rushed into it at this moment, followed closely behind, and moved forward rapidly along the light curtain above. Xiaobai, who was in the depths of the ring sea, was stunned when she saw this scene. Out of inertial thinking, she originally thought that Yun Feng and the others would jump directly into the sea as usual, fight with herself and other sea soul beasts head-on, and then look for opportunities to break through, but she never thought that they would make such a clever arrangement. "Isn't this playing tricks?" That's right, now all the women have good water surnames, but no matter how good their water surnames are, they can't compare with real sea soul beasts. That's why they thought of using the characteristics of Huo Wu's soul skills to make such an arrangement. When Xiaobai, the king of the demon soul great white shark, reacted, they had already penetrated more than 60 meters into the ring sea, and because all the sea soul beasts had set up formations around the seawater before, They did not encounter any obstacles. White light burst out from Yun Feng's body, turning into an elliptical halo, just covering the women, and the white light in the front condensed into a sharp cone. The momentum of Huo Wu's forward charge increased again, and it was the Killing God domain's evolutionary skill Killing God Assault that was launched. At the same time, through the Killing God domain, a strong murderous aura suddenly burst out, causing the sea soul beasts closest to them and who reacted first to stagnate in fear and dare not get too close. Seeing that, Yun Feng and others' linear formation broke through to the position of 70 meters. Zhao Bei was a little angry, thinking to himself, these humans are really cunning, and they actually want to pass the level in this way. A strong blue-gray light suddenly burst out from its body, and the surrounding seawater almost boiled in an instant. The huge light instantly merged into the entire ring sea area, and Huo Wu's forward momentum slowed down immediately when the seawater was rendered by the light. The Demon Shark Domain, the exclusive domain of Zibai, the king of demon soul great white sharks. Once activated, the seawater within the range will become like her body and be controlled by her. The huge energy contained in it, coupled with the mutual restraint of water and fire, naturally slowed down Huo Wu's forward movement. Although Huo Wu's martial soul has evolved, the intensity of the flame at this time is purer than Ziabai's energy. But the difference in strength between the two is enough to offset the attribute difference between water and fire, and even Huo Wu cannot change this situation under Ningrong-Arong's amplification. At the same time as the domain erupted, Ziabai's huge body swayed in the seawater, commanding all the sea soul beasts to rush towards Yuan and others from below, and at the same time using the domain to control the seawater to squeeze over. She never believed that Huo Wu could compete with the sea controlled by her domain with her own strength. That's right, Huo Wu certainly couldn't compete with the 100,000-year-old demon soul great white shark king, but she is not alone. Yun Feng directly released his soul bone skills, and the soul power attribute of the Fire Dragon King was directly blessed to Huo Wu. Then, not far ahead, the Skyfire Funeral, huge meteorites rushed down from the sky, carrying scorching flames, evaporating the seawater in front of them. For nearly a year, Yun Feng and his companions had almost always been in constant competition with Zhao Bei. They knew Zhao Bei's strength very well. In this case, how could they not have accurate calculations? They had already made the worst plan. At this time, they were able to rush to a position of 100 meters, which was beyond Yun Feng's expectations. Buzz, the ring-shaped sea trembled violently. In anger, Zhao Bei's forehead had a circle of blue crystal ripples spreading out, chasing Yun Feng and his companions. At the same time, the blue-gray light that burst out from her body also suddenly intensified, and the seawater in the entire ring-shaped sea condensed like a solid. Not to mention Yun Feng and his companions who she deliberately targeted. Even the other sea soul beasts in the seawater were locked by the seawater and could not move. That's right, Yun Feng's domain has evolutionary skills, and Zhao Bei, a sea soul beast that is as strong as 100,000 years old, also has its own evolutionary ability. The enhanced gray-blue light on her body was exactly his magic shark domain evolution skill, solidified, and this was also Ziabai's most powerful means to stop Yun and the girls. The blue ripples released from her head were not domain abilities, but the special mental attack that had almost injured Yun, called the Despair Light Wave. Once successfully enveloped, the enemy in the Despair Light Wave would be unable to move, and all of their soul skills would be temporarily sealed, like fish on a chopping board, allowing Zibai to slaughter them. While releasing the two powerful skills, Zibai's huge body also moved, and almost in a flash, he had already rushed to Yun and the girls. The position she chose was very clever, not the front Huo Wu, but the middle position, the 9 treasure-glazed Ningrong-Arong who was amplifying them. Ningrong-Arong was undoubtedly one of the weakest among the 7 monsters, but her ability was the most irreplaceable among the 7 monsters. With her amplification, everyone's comprehensive strength could be increased by at least 50%, and in some special abilities, it was increased to a terrifying 80%. Now is not the time to play around. Zibai's extremely rich combat experience made her choose the most correct attack position at this time. From the domain enhancement, the release of the despair light wave, to her body launching an attack. The three aspects of ability can be said to have instantly burst out the powerful strength of her 100,000-year soul beast. Without such strength, how could she stop the women from advancing more than 100 meters? However, the women's Zibai faced this time were obviously different from before. The sudden solidification of the seawater did slow down the speed of everyone's progress, but it did not completely stop everyone as she expected. Although Huowu's Naruto consumed a lot of energy in the sea, the effect was extremely powerful, even in the face of Zibai's domain evolution skills. The flames that were boiling like magma, combined with Yun Feng's soul bone skills, continued to push forward. At the moment when Zibai rushed up with the despair light wave, she was also attacked by Yun Feng and the women. It was no one else who attacked her. It was Yun Feng, the core soul among the crowd, the absolute leader, and all his soul ring skills were sealed. Two bright purple gold lights met Zibai, who was rising up. The light just passed through the center of the despair light wave and hit Zibai's forehead. When Zibai first saw the purple gold light, she didn't care. With her body that had been cultivated for 100,000 years, she didn't need to care about some attacks. However, she soon found something wrong, because the purple gold light didn't seem to be affected by the refraction of the seawater, and when it got closer and closer to her, she could clearly feel that her senses that could cover the entire ring sea suddenly became dull. Mental attack? End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.